Good morning. It is Monday, February 3rd, 2020. It's 41 degrees under scattered clouds. No chance of rain today. Going to get up to 52 with mostly sunny skies. It is Monday, the day after the Super Bowl. The Chiefs win. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. Welcome to Radio Westchester. This is the radio station at the train station, and we get rolling with the weather. No, actually, we get rolling with the top stories, and then we'll come back with the weather in just a bit. No secret by now, unless you've been on another planet, Mahomes rallies the Chiefs for the first title in 50 years. Here in Rochelle, cheers for Super Bowl champion Jordan Lucas, who started out his career here in New Rochelle. Mercy College to move out of former College of New Rochelle campus this summer as they get ready to turn the campus over to the Masons. And demonstrations could delay your commute into Manhattan today. That's at Grand Central. And a car blast through a Chase Bank in Hartsdale. We'll talk about the virus. They may have some cases here in New York. A big showdown in Iowa tonight. And of course, the president has a speech tomorrow night. He's not yet been acquitted, but that is a fait accompli. Welcome to Radio Westchester. First up, and I got to get used to where they reposition the music here, so you'll see me sliding around back and forth till I learn it a little bit. Play, would you please play? There we go. Alrighty, let's take a look at the weather, and the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Today, mostly sunny. The temperature's going to get up to 54 degrees. You'll be jogging down by the shore. The wind out of the west-southwest, 5 to 15 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy, though, to the temperature 37. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. It's been a theme lately. The temperature will be 50 degrees, the wind out of the southwest 5 to 10. And on Wednesday, morning showers again, giving way to increasing sunshine. The high will be 43, and we'll take you out to Thursday. Periods of snow, but don't count on it sticking. Sleet and rain, changing to rain. The high will be 40 degrees. The overnight low will be 38 degrees. Welcome once again to Good Morning Westchester. Of course, yesterday, a big day for football fans, and it's become a slice of Americana as well. In his world and the rest of the NFL, it is his world, and he's living in it. Dial up the storytellers that marvel about a superhero series, said the New York Post today, but trying not to overdo it as far as assigning him powers. The only problem here, what can Patrick Mahomes do? Well, the 24-year-old wonderkind took to the grandest stage of all and crushed it. He had to withstand adversity, his own foibles, a forceful defense, but charged up to contain him they were. But nonetheless, down the stretch, a 10-point fourth-quarter deficit, he overcame it all with his arm and his legs, his moxie, and even his serenity. And we'll talk a lot more about that when Jake comes in during our 8 o'clock segment, and we'll let you know if he won. We'll let you know how I did on my picks and my bets. The final score, the Chiefs 31, the 49ers 20. Wow. New Rochelle, meanwhile, this morning is celebrating a Super Bowl victory for one of its own. This in News 12 today. Jordan Lucas, who plays for the Chiefs, started his career playing football for New Rochelle High School. Chiefs assistant coach David Taub joined Lucas as the other Hudson Valley representative in Super Bowl IV. So kudos to both Mr. Taub and New Rochelle's Jordan Lucas. Mercy College will be leaving the former College of New Rochelle campus this summer after 1 year as a tenant there. This according to a spokesperson. Mercy signed a lease for up to 2 years for the 15.6-acre campus to ease the transition for reportedly 1,700 former CNR students Mercy took on as part of an agreement between the two schools. The college decided, though, to opt out of the second year, which set annual rent at $1.8 million. Mercy, which also took over satellite CNR space in Harlem and Brooklyn, paid 16 months of its rent up front so CNR could use the cash to help wind down its process. Got to say, Kudos to Mercy. The new Mercy departure comes as the campus is being sold to the Masons for $32 million as part of a liquidation of CNR's assets. The trustees of the Masonic Hall and Asylum Fund are planning to build senior housing for seniors, obviously. That coming out of LOHUD today. Thank you, LOHUD. It is 6:42. They hid my clock in the latest reintroduction to the studio, but I can squeeze my eyeballs in there. Don't worry, folks. We'll sort all these upgrades on weekends, but it gets better and better and better. Metro North Railroad is warning commuters, and we obviously are warning you about potential delays at Grand Central Terminal for today's evening rush because of potential demonstrations once again in the area. Just keep an eye on that. We think you'll be fine. But you'll never know. That was a big demonstration the other day. Not the one that we've been calling for here on Radio Westchester. What we want is the middle class, well, everybody, to join in the one that we're planning for April 1st. We just want no one, absolutely no one. We don't want demonstrations. We just don't want you to pay the toll unless justice will be done to all fairly. And by the way, that means locking up people or at least giving them a ticket if they go through on other days, the turnstiles without paying. All righty, we move on. That was a bit of a comment. We always separate the comments from the news. Back to the news as we pass through 6:43. A Jeep crashed through the front door of a Chase Bank in Hartsdale. Why didn't they just ask for the money? This out of News 12 today. The incident happened at around 7:15 p.m. The glass front door and the inside door. I'm crooked. I'm all the way to one side. Should I be moving here or there? No, I'm on. They got to change the camera a little bit. Could you put that camera a little bit more on me because I'm all the way over to the side. I look crooked. A jet crashed through the front door of a Chase Bank in Hartsdale Saturday. As we said, the incident happened at around 7:15. The glass front door and the inside door of the bank were completely destroyed. Greenberg police won't confirm if there were injuries. They said that no one was taken to the hospital. The bank is expected to remain closed for the next several days. And we really don't know if that was a robbery or just someone who hit a gas pedal the wrong way, etc. 6:44. And I can't tell if any calls are coming in just yet, so don't call yet. Counseling sessions were held at Ardsley High School Saturday after a 17-year-old student was killed in a car crash Thursday night. Police say a Jeep driven by 50-year-old Jamie Packwar was traveling westbound on the eastbound lane. The Jeep crashed into a BMW, causing the Jeep to roll over. Such a sad story. Investigators say 17-year-old Eric Goldberg and 57-year-old Jordan Wachtel were both killed. School officials say Wachtel, the driver in the BMW, was driving teens to a non-school related event when the crash happened. Two other teenagers in the car were seriously hurt. Police say Parser is expected to recover, and they added that charges are pending. All right, we'll figure out who's getting charged in that confusing debacle, but the sad story, the loss of life. 6:45. And indeed, following that, family and friends gathered on Sunday to mourn the loss of Eric Goldberg, whose life was cut short Thursday night when a wrong-way driver struck the car. He was a passenger on Interstate 287. Hundreds of mourners packed into Weinstein Memorial Chapel in Yonkers. Several speakers described the young man, an Ardsley High School senior and student athlete, as someone ceasefully devoted to family, friends, and loved ones. 6:46. Well, look at this. Transit-focused developments are sparking fears of gentrification. This is becoming a common theme where development is taking place in Westchester and at other spots out throughout New York City and the surrounding areas. One Lucy Moreno Casanova used to see familiar faces around her neighborhood in Yonkers, and she says not so much anymore. This out of LOHUD. One of the quotes here is, the rent that used to cost $750 and now $1,400. Our people cannot pay this rent, and a lot of people are moving out of Yonkers. Casanova was out of one of about 40 people who gathered at City Hall to vent about jobs, traffic, and being priced out of the Ludlow Park area. This is an increasing issue. I don't know that we should call it a problem yet. That's what we'll talk about. Is it a problem or is it progress or is it a combination of both? A broken elevator at a Yonkers senior housing complex has been causing complications for the city's living at Trinity Apartments in Yonkers. It can be difficult to take the stairs of the four-story complex. However, residents say the building's only elevator has been out of service for a week, and signs on the elevator tell residents to take the stairs, but the complex houses senior 55 and older, and many of whom have medical problems. So again, it's the Trinity Apartments. If you're listening to this broadcast and you could put heat on the owners, on the county, or whoever is in charge of enforcing that, make it happen for these people. It is 6:48. 2 more people were being tested for the deadly coronavirus in the city. This is on New York City, but the region is affected. This happened on Sunday as the number of confirmed cases nationwide rose to 11. The 2 latest patients, both in Queens, over 60 years old, recently returned from China and developed, quote, fever and cough or shortness of breath without another common cause. This according to the city's Department of Health. The unidentified patients are in stable condition at Flushing Hospital, where they were tested for the common cold and flu. Again, this is one of those illnesses right now until they get the swabs back and can be sure. They're pretty much diagnosing by process of elimination. We're going to take a quick break for a weather report before we go to some of the regional and national news. A reminder, the bottom of the hour today is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And the weather, of course, is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. Right now, it's 41 degrees. It's getting up to 52 today. Scattered clouds, but the good news, the good news, mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 54. That will be the top. It'll average out about that, too. Nice, comfortable day. Mostly cloudy tonight. The temperature's around 37. The wind out of the southwest to the southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we roll into Tuesday, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature will be 50, and Wednesday morning showers giving way to increasing sunshine, a high of 43. Again, this mixture of warmer weather and showers, we can live with that. That is until Thursday, when though that rain turns into a little bit of snow and sleet, but changing once again to rain. The temperature's too high, averaging about 40 to do anything else. And as we roll into Friday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high will be 45 degrees. The overnight low, 24. And that is the weather for this fine day. And we go into the final 10 minutes of the hour. And once again, you're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am he. This is Radio Westchester, the radio station at the train station. Welcome aboard. I know you see me all the way over to the side, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. In fact, I'm going to reach up with my hand and fix it in a moment. Some of the other news we're following for you, we'll get right now. Carranza's in the news again. He's finally now talking about diversity or integration. I didn't know he had that in him. We don't know what he had in him, except in our view, at least my view, he's kind of racist. We have a showdown in Iowa tonight where Bernie leads the Democratic field by a smidgen. You've got Buttigieg, Biden, Tulsi, Klobuchar, Warren, Steyer, Bernie, and of course Andrew Yang. We hope that field gets narrow. Americans need a choice, not a smorgasbord. The president says that not only himself but his family, he felt it was unfair to them that he was impeached. But nonetheless, Lamar Alexander said, quote, "The president did it, but I'll acquit." And that's what he did. The president can't be too happy with that. When we get into sports in more detail, you should know that someone who played for both New York teams, Curtis Granderson, has retired. Alrighty, let's get into some of that stuff. If you'd like to talk about the the Super Bowl, we are going to be here. But let's get into this story. The chancellor in New York schools it kind of admits now that it's all about integration. And some of this people there in Queens are calling it, well, baloney. These are some of the things that are coming out of New York City about Carranza. As you know, last week he refused to talk with parents who were complaining about the fact that people or children were being bullied in his school. And one of his schools, he wouldn't talk to them, and now a lot more is coming out about the fact that he's changing the way tests are done, changing the way violence is managed, etc. And again, probably in his mind with the best of intentions to integrate. Integration's a good thing. We all want that. We all want diversity. But it needs to be done with real efforts to keep schools safe, with real efforts to keep standards proper so that children can learn, or in the mortal words of once President Bush, the second one is our children learning. Not very much in New York City. Senator Lamar Alexander says he will support acquitting President Trump after casting a critical vote against calling the witnesses to testify in the Senate trial. He said, quote, "I'm voting to vote to acquit," the Tennessee Republican said during an interview with NBC News yesterday. "I'm very concerned, though, about any action that we could take that would establish a perpetual impeachment in the House of Representatives whenever the House has a different party." Democrats had hoped Alexander would be one of the 4 Republican senators they needed to vote to get witnesses there. Again, Alexander's point, he did it. That is not arguable to him, but he wanted the acquittal. You're not going to like this, particularly if you live here in New Rochelle, but the truth is the truth. Once again, and this comes out of Phil Mushnick. He's just such a straight shooter. This one hurts. 2 more famous ex-Yankees, pardon me, are apparently starving. Next month, the Fanatics Collectibles operation will stage an evening with CC Sabathia and Mariano Rivera in Manhattan. Fans can prove their long, heartfelt devotion to one or both. Now, this is capitalism, so all's well, by forking over $2,000 for tickets. So, as you know, Mariano we saw him here at the train station looking for quarters. Must be. But you know what? That's capitalism. If people want to pay, they have a right to do it. It just, well, it's a sign of the times. This one hurt because she used to be a regular on my program, although this is back when I was on WFAS. Mary Higgins Clark, the tireless and long-reigning queen of suspense, whose tales of women beating the odds made her one of the world's most popular writers, died Friday at the age of 92. Publisher Simon & Schuster said she died in Naples, Florida, of natural causes. And the woman had 500, my God, something like 50 million books. 50, well, let me see. No. Sales topped 100 million copies in her book sales. Godspeed, 92 years old. Okay, boy, I've got to get myself comfortable for this because I'm about to be very angry. Well, at least radio angry. I'm not going to throw things around like I might have otherwise. We all have followed, and we certainly followed it here, the story last week of the man who let his little boy die freezing in a garage and then made fun of it when he kept falling down from hypothermia. And when the woman he was living with said, "My goodness, why did he fall down?" "Oh, boo-hoo-hoo." That's one of the things that he said. Well, it was one of those you bring your kids, I'll bring mine relationships. The mother of the child kept complaining to every city agency that she feared for the life of her child. And they did as a lot of municipal agencies do. Nada. Here's one of the stories. We got the News, we got the Post, we had the Times. Whatever small measure of warmth little Thomas Valver enjoyed in his brief and brutal lifetime disappeared in the 2 ugly years before his death. in a freezing Long Island garage. Records of repeated abuse complaints obtained by the Daily News after the autistic 8-year-old's heartbreaking death 2 weeks ago showed some 20, not 1, not 2, not 10, 20 calls from the child's teachers to the state about a hotline in 2018-19 when Thomas was living with his accused killers. His father, NYPD police officer Michael Valva, and the cop's fiancée, Angela Paulina, the repeated allegations of neglect and mistreatment from teachers in East Moriches also involved the dead boy's 10-year-old autistic brother, Anthony, who reports that the boys missed school for 2 and 3 days at a time. In another instance, the boys arrived carrying urine-soaked backpacks, yet Suffolk County authorities, so we take it out there now, we have the state and the county, okay, never removed the 2 siblings from the toxic and ultimately lethal Center Moriches home where they were left to fend for themselves. Michael Valva and Paulina, 42, remain jailed without bail on murder charges following the January 24 arrests. Now, years before Thomas's death, they were rife with warning signs of the tragedy ahead. The records show the child's parents were involved in a contentious divorce battle in 2015. Nassau County Police were called 21 times. In July 2016, the Boyd City Correction Officer mother Zubo Valva reported abuse of her 3 children by her transit cop husband. The Nassau County Police Department Special Victims Unit investigated the claims and interviews with the children, but both units found no evidence to support the allegations. The Child Protection Services workers would claim I have mental illness, she said. That's the mother, that I'm drinking, that I have erratic behavior, etc. Zublo Valva said she passed every clearance to get her job. I went through the most detailed evaluation. I was a person without mental illness, able to perform a job without any restrictions. Folks, the child, and we coined this phrase when people were turning in the Valerie Schwab thing here in New Rochelle into a racial issue, which still makes me scratch my head and affected me permanently regarding agendas in school districts. At any rate, this one makes me scratch my head as well. And we will repeat our mantra from then. This person, this young child, is still dead. And the Post kind of captured it a little differently. They said they thought she was making it all up. It cost a little boy's life, from cops and social workers to lawyers and judges. Long Island mom Justina Zubko Valva claims no one took her warnings about her NYPD cop husband, Michael Valva, seriously. Alleging sex abuse, starvation, brainwashing, beatings, and possible child porn, the mom had insisted their 3 sons were suffering at Valva's hands. That's probably enough to wake you up to this morning, folks. But if we are going to have these agencies, and we know these problems are difficult, we know that many parents are just horrible at what they do, we know people have children that they shouldn't have. We understand that. But if we're going to set up an agency, the agencies should be run right and do what they're expected to do. Now, the war makes conflicts. These things are difficult. We're not naive here. But for God's sakes, if you work in child protection services and you don't want to really be conscientious, do something else. I know you need a job. It's like that issue we had here in New Rochelle. The poor cops had their hands tied because the law said they couldn't break into a house where they knew a child was being abused, and then 2 days later she was dead. We need to do a better job of this. And these are the things we pay taxes for that are worth paying taxes for. And when they don't work, that is, that's a problem. Now, we're going to have some fun as we head into 7 o'clock. We have a quiz for you. What do these 4 men have in common? O.J. Simpson, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Donald Trump. When we come back, see if you can guess that one. It's interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Now, we keep seeing this thing in the paper that's driving us nuts. And if it affects you, you're going to be calling in a little while as soon as we figure out how to get that phone turned on. Because it's dark. Okay, let's press the button. See what's new. There's nothing on there. So, all righty. I'm 50 years old, which means that I'm roughly 2.5 years ago, I passed the unhappiness point. Where did they come up with this thing that people become happiest at 47 and 2 months? See, not only are your phones controlling you and manipulating you, they're like electronic hormones, electronic pheromones. Now, the press is trying, this is fake news in a lot of ways, they're trying to tell you when you'll be most unhappy. I was not unhappy at all at 47. It was one of the greatest times of my life. So I'm trying to figure out where they get this bullshit from. One more local story before we go nationally. Oh, there is a call coming in. Missed call. We'll get to that right now. Let me see which button I can use. Can I call him back? I don't even know the passcode. We'll be back to you. Tom, why don't you call again? We've got a new system this morning. You know how that goes. World Gone Nuts continued. Curtis Granderson, after 16 years, is among the easiest big leagues to root for. He retired last week. He played for the Mets, the Yankees, many other teams. He conspicuously adhered to two standards. One, always run hard to first, and two, always do right by kids. Now, what made Granderson cool is he built a field for his high school, a baseball field for his high school, before it was fashionable to do that kind of thing. Laid out millions of dollars of his own money. And we're going to see if I can use this new system now to maybe call him back. But I don't see this. God, Lord, and heaven, save me from cell phone hell, okay? Save me from it. Save me from it. And I would have liked to get a little beep beep on the phone when it happens. So we've got a genius on hand who ought to make that thing work. All righty, we have some other stories we did want to share with you today, and we're seeing who could answer my great quiz. All right. We have a couple of other odds and ends that we like to do, and that is the average ticket price for this year's Super Bowl was $7,000, with the cheapest upper deck seat going for $4,750. This on the NFL Ticket Exchange. Hotel rooms at 4-star locations, not even 5 in the Miami area, averaged $880. That's $880. Wow. That's actually pretty cool. I didn't realize that there was that much. Okay. Anyway, speaking of statistics and things like that, an average of 11 million TV viewers watched the first day of President Trump's impeachment trial on cable TV during the afternoon, and another 7.5 million during prime time. That far exceeds the 2.3 million who tuned in during prime time in 1999 for the first day of Clinton's impeachment trial. All right, let's see who just called in. All right, I'm going to see if I can get him on the line. All right. We're going to see. Oh, yeah. All right, that's a familiar sign.
Hi, this is Thomas Brown.
Hey, Tom.
Sorry,
Tom, you aren't there. All righty, we're going to drop you. You'll have to call back. At least we know how it's working. And again, this happens all the time. We add new stuff, folks, and how I deal with it like a klutz. So you just have to get used to it. Moving along on some of these other things, and let me check the sounder here. 60 healthcare companies and trade organizations collectively. Now get this number, and you wonder why it costs a lot to go to the doctor, get health care, etc. $309 million on federal lobbying. There are people up there with $300 million that are making sure you've got to go for your lungs. And I got to move this. It's driving me nuts. All right. There. At least I'm halfway in the middle. 60 healthcare companies, again, and trade organizations collectively spent $309 million on lobbying, up 9%. That includes $120 million from pharmaceutical trade groups. Where does it all end? The Trump administration has opened an investigation into an incident of alleged anti-Semitism in UCLA, but be careful before you join my mantra of never again, because this one is more political than real. One of the first such inquiries since the president extended the 1964 Civil Rights Act's protection to Jews in December, which we like in general. However, the incident involved a guest speaker to an anthropology class who sharply criticized Israel for alleged atrocities and ethnic cleansing against Palestinians. Okay. Now, The problem is how much of that is political. It cannot be. I will never accept it. You can throw me off the air. You can come in here and shoot me. Anybody calls me an anti-Semite when if I criticize Israel, a sovereign nation with whom that I support, but with whom I have every right to criticize, as I do my own country, I will know that I've been the victim of agenda-driven stuff. Enough of that nonsense. Now, if this man was talking about Israelites, if he was talking about Jews, if he was talking about people doing stuff that's clear lying to give a bad hue to the state of Israel, perhaps that's true. But if he's criticizing actions that the government take, perhaps wrongly, well, that's fair game, and we have to stop doing that. And I would hope that every Jewish person of goodwill understands my point. We're going to take a break and see what in God's name is going on here on Radio Westchester. We'll be right back after this. All righty. We have returned. Welcome back to Good Morning Westchester. It is, I did that. That's, you know what that is, folks? Let me get this off my chest. I tell people every time you change things in the studio, things are going to be rough for a while, and that's my fault. But pretty soon I'm going to say I was at Bishop Ford, where I went to high school. God, I hate change, but that's probably a product of my age and everything else. Alrighty, let's take a look at what's coming up today at 7:20. We're going to talk with Vince Russo at 7:35. George Latimer's in the house for his weekly report. And we'll be talking at 8 o'clock and for a while with Jake Schaefer about his picks, about my picks, about the picks from Steve Callis and others. We chose scores to debate about. We chose how long the commercials would be. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. That's at 8 o'clock. Newish Almea Noam Bramson joins us at 8:20. Tom Abinante joins us at 8:50 today. And we've got Bob Cox joining us, and I'm all the way to the side again. Bob Cox joining us at 9 o'clock. Welcome to the program. If you'd like to join the conversation, we have some time to do that. 914-222-3141. 914-222-3141. And I need an arm that's about a foot longer. But I like the setup. The setup's good. Tomorrow, one day later in the week, we're going to take off one of these screens and show you everything, or one of these cameras, and show you exactly of what we have here. It's very interesting and a job well done, but it's so hard to get used to. Again, 222-3141. No one has taken me up on my quiz yet. What do these four men have in common? O.J. Simpson, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Donald Trump. We hope that you will, but so much to talk about, so little time, as the expression goes. This is interesting. Actually, there's so much interesting going on. I gave you the average price of a ticket, didn't I? Okay, moving right along. This is coming out of Manila. This is another one of those strong men, and I hope the president deals with this the way he's dealt with some of these other people. But this is one of the people he likes, so we shall see. Philippine President Roberto Duterte, said last week that he will terminate the deal that lets American troops operate in the country unless the U.S. restores the visa of a close Duterte ally accused of human rights violations. As National Police Chief from 2016 to 2018, Philippine Senator Ronald Del Rosa directed Duterte's brutal anti-drug crackdown in which officers killed thousands of suspected drug dealers and users. Duterte had been given the U.S. a month to restore De La Rosa's visa, or he'll tear up the visiting forces agreement. I'll end that son of a bee, he said. He said in a speech, if the VFA is scrapped. It will be virtually impossible, by the way, if we are thrown out of that country, for the U.S. to pre-position troop defense equipment and so forth if trouble erupts in the South China Sea. So what does this sound like? Doesn't this sound like a political quid pro quo? Gee, wonder where you got that idea from. But then all politicians do that. I'm just poking a stick at the bears who listen. Now here's one to get my friends, rightfully so. Now we're going to poke a stick at the people on the left. We hope you are listening. Yale University is scrapping its renowned, I can't get over this, freshman course, its Introduction to Art History. You won't believe why. Renaissance to the Present, that's the name of the course, in response to what the Yale Daily News calls student uneasiness about the overwhelmingly white, straight European and male. We came from Europe, most of us then. Where do you think the art came from? Where do you think most of the great museums in the world exist? It's neither for nor good. Bad or good, that's where it came from. There's other kinds of art, and we do it. There's African art, there's Asian art, there's art from other places, but Europe is where these kinds of things emanated. But no, I'm upset. Professor Tim Barron said he will teach the course for the final time this year with a new emphasis on gender, class, and race. Gender, class, and race aren't the reasons that you have art. You have art because it works. You have art because it tells a story. You have art because it conveys what it conveys. It's either good or it's not. Pretty soon, my friends on the left are going to start serving us ice cream flavors that we don't like. Steak cooked the way they want it cooked because it's the minority. People do what works, folks. This is ridiculous. Just nuts. Now we go to health food. One Barbara Heller, 76, accidentally, this is actually a good story. You may have read it here in New York. She fell 7 stories. It was an accident. It wasn't an attempted suicide from her New York City apartment. But she survived by landing on boxes of fruit and vegetables. Lucky woman. Now, this is a rough story to do. Putting your money where your mouth is. After one Mitch Felderhoff, co-owner of Texas dog food distributors, he announced he'd eat nothing but his own products since January 1. Felderhoff, who lost 20 pounds, and that may be, boy, you could see all the people running out now to eat dog food to lose weight. He lost 20 pounds, says his favorite dog food is our ancient graham ocean fish. And he said it was pretty good. And anyway, he said, from a kibble standpoint. O.J. Simpson, he's in the news every other day. If this guy isn't the biggest a-hole on the planet who belongs in jail and not in jail, it's him. O.J. Simpson is suing Cosmopolitan Casino in Las Vegas, forgetting this, get this, for damaging his reputation by banning him from being drunk and disruptive. The casino responded that it couldn't possibly have tarnished Simpson's reputation because, well, he's a convicted felon, widely believed to have knifed his ex-wife and her friend to death. Not just widely believed. You know, we all go by the first when he was acquitted in court, but we forget the second trial where he was told to give... he was sued for millions of dollars and they won. The jury concluded that he did it, that he caused their deaths, even though he wasn't legally guilty. The man is a skull, a dreadlock, a piece of garbage, a worm, an insect, a piece of shoot. Ageism, and boy, there is ageism. After a Methodist church in Minnesota asked members over the age of 60, now get this, over the age of 60, to worship elsewhere for 18 months while it tries to woo a younger congregation. After all, Reverend Dan Winterstrom explained, Jesus said we are called to reach new people. Jesus said you ought to do a better job to keep the older folks there. If people closing in on the great ending of life don't want to be close to God, you're losing your audience, because so far, well, uber religious people aren't exactly going to Oxford. All righty, that's a tough shot I took, but hey, argue with me, debate it. I've been following Christopher Hitchens on all his debates while he was alive. He never lost one. Never lost a debate. But the guys that went against him would say it's all about faith, like crystals and stuff. All righty. What age are you too old? We keep reading this thing. We keep going on and on about 47, you're depressed. At 70 is the new 30. Well, when does someone become old? A writer by the name of Joe Pinkster in the Atlantic covered this. It's become a very sensitive question in a youth-oriented society in which old suggests deterioration and obsolescence. In 2016, a Marist poll, only 16% of those over 60, they thought that someone 65 was really old, okay? Many of today's 60 to 70-somethings are vigorous and relatively healthy and hate such traditional terms as senior or elderly. However, even though I am one of those, they're now starting to call them older Americans rather than old, and it's just an interesting time. Now, as we get ready, Vince should be calling soon. That is, if our new phone works. We'll find out soon enough. This was a piece out of the Boston Globe. And this is about the Holocaust. For 75 years, searing memory of the Holocaust has been invoked with reverential words, never again. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is about a show that we are preparing about the Holocaust, because we do believe that we don't remember it enough. Anyway, let me continue. And for 75 years, never again has repeatedly become, quote, yet again. Not only in Cambodia and Rwanda and Syria, but also in the Congo, Kurdistan, East Timor, and Darfur, in Bosnia and Guatemala, in North Korea's Gulag, and the concentration camps of Xinjiang. Murderous ethnic cleansing is underway even now in Myanmar. The blood of victims cries out from the ground. Never again is a fine sentiment for Holocaust memorials, but as a guide to action, less than useless. Good for you, Jeff Jacoby. And we mention this because we're almost done with our research for that show. And the interesting thing about reading what led up to the Holocaust and so forth has a lot to do with authoritarian government, has a lot to do with governments run by people who think they have all the answers. It has all to do with governments that are not democratic. And it has an awful lot to do with citing any group of people, be they black or Latino. Sorry about how loud that was. Or Latino, etc. Or in the case of Europe, Jews. So we have one more item before we move on. And this is to end our news, our in-depth news segment, which we do every day from 6. Stop coughing over there. Every day. And that is hope for universal cancer treatment. Do I have your attention? In a potential breakthrough for cancer research, one British scientist say they have found a class of immune cells that could one day be used as one-size-fits-all therapy for most cancers. And this is this whole dynamic, folks, and we've talked about it on the doctor show with Dr. Sternberg, and immunotherapy, where they managed to find some sort of a bug or an agent or even a virus that will attack a specific cell. Well, they're trying to do that so your immune system will attack specific cancer cells. And it's based on the same way that dye or chemotherapy is, which is there are certain elements in nature, there are certain colors, there are certain chemicals that attack one cell over another. However, they don't necessarily trigger your immune system, but viruses too. So they've managed to do it with a lot of the blood cancers, leukemia, lymphomas. And if they ever do it for hard tumors, it will be quite a revolution. And they feel they're close to that. A little later on, we'll tell you that your new body temperature is no longer 98.6. It is 7:22, and we're ready to talk to our first guest of the hour. We remind you that the top of the hour is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhtc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And we joined Vince Russo. Good morning, Vince.
Hey, Bob. Good morning.
You still have that cough and wheeze? Are you dying?
Oh, man, I tell you what, I've been sick since the middle of last week.
It's the coronavirus.
And every time I feel like I'm getting better, then later that day I get worse. I don't know what's going on.
You got to sleep. You got to get yourself a bottle of NyQuil.
Oh, I hate that stuff. No, I can't take NyQuil.
Why? What happens?
And I get, really hyper from it.
You get hyper from NyQuil?
Yeah, it's supposed to put you to sleep, not me.
What else? What's put you to sleep? Well, I can send an 18-year-old from one of the colleges over there.
There you go. That might work.
Wear you right out. You'll sleep for a month. You may even be dead. All right. No one's answered this question yet. I enjoy this. Are you ready?
Sure.
What do O.J. Simpson, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Donald Trump have in common?
They all abused women.
Well, that's true. I didn't think of that. But upstanding, what else do they have in common?
I don't know.
Okay, they're all upstanding citizens aided by Dallin Dershowitz.
Oh, that knucklehead.
He's got different opinions for everything, black as white, except on a Monday during the vernal equinox.
Dershowitz is a publicity whore.
That's what he's become, and he was so great once. What do you think happens to these guys like him, and of course the former mayor of New York, Julie Wackey?
Oh, Julie. Yeah, they go off the rail. Giuliani, I don't know, really has lost his mind. I don't get it.
Although some guys on the left have made a life of doing that too. I mean, look at Al Sharpton; he never goes away. Even gets a TV
it's
show.
True. There was something where Chris Christie was talking about.
Oh,
something.
Krispy Kreme, yes.
I mean, he's another one that I don't know.
You know what the most telling thing is? Remember when he closed the beaches and then the helicopters saw him sitting there? He looked like 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream with eyes sitting on a beach chair. Fat.
Yeah, these guys, they have no shame, they do this stuff. And he said, well, it's back of my house. I could do what I want.
But
the rest of the state can't use the beach, thanks.
I want the Supreme Court to throw those 2 yahoos from New Jersey in jail so bad I could taste it. Because I am so sick of elected officials on both sides treating us like pawns. Pawns. Yeah. Don't they realize that the millions of people going to work those days for 3 days, how horrible that was? Do not the judges, do not our elected officials, does not the public ought to rise up with wrath over that? I keep thinking when my mother was dying and I was trying to get to the hospital, or when I had an important interview in New York City and I had to get there because I needed a job, or my boss said, one more time you're late and you lose it, or I had a contract to work on. How dare these monsters, these pieces of spit?
Well, because they feel they're above it all.
You know why they do it? I used to work with a guy at WVOX whom I love, this guy Greg, and he used to say, because they can.
Well, we let them get away with it, that's for sure.
7:25. Did you watch or listen to the Super Bowl yesterday?
You know what? I did watch it, and I saw an interesting thing while I was waiting to come on, and it was President Trump sent a congratulatory tweet.
Well, that's good. He's the president.
Yeah, and he said, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on a great game and a fantastic comeback under immense pressure. A coherent sentence. It's amazing. You represented the great state of Kansas and, in fact, the entire USA so very well. Our country is proud of you.
It got the wrong state, pal. He's got to listen to his staff. Although you know what, in Kansas City, that's easy to do because they're right across the street. Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah,
Whenever
I
I
know.
whenever I used to go there to look at the airliner I helped save, I used to be, where am I? And all
I
right,
did watch the game though, and I was disappointed. I wanted the 49ers to
yeah,
win.
you mentioned that. Yeah, they have to hang up their skirts until next year. See now, by the way, did I tell you about a dream I had apropos of this?
No.
My sense of humor, and again, I've had to adapt it a little bit on the air because of the Me Too movement, and because there's always someone you're going to offend. But I actually was back in Merrill Lynch, and I was watching I was doing radio though, which is weird. I was doing radio at night in the dream, and some woman fell off a chair, and I think I'm going to get into the massage business to help her, and they fired me for it.
Well, they would if you.
No. I just no, but that's not terrible. See, the whole point of humor, and this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit. We'll get back to the. It's funny how your dreams can lead to a radio segment. The whole point is, of course, you don't do that. Of course, you'll never do that. It captures a feeling. It captures a drive. It captures a human bit of irony. That, gee, wouldn't it be great? It's like being the massage therapist of Victoria's Secrets. How do you get that job? Of course you'll never have it. Of course you'd never do it. Of course you'd never abuse or minimize a woman for it. It's like a woman seeing something, a handsome cop walks in the house and she says, hello there. It's the same human, real thing. Why can't we do that?
Well, speaking of Victoria's Secrets, there was an article in the Times recently about what skells they were. And how they would, have these girls go down to these
be careful
these events, and supposedly as models, and then try and get away with them.
See, now that's terrible. But I'm telling you, it's a crazy world out there. Your whole life can be ruined by one bad joke.
Yeah, or just somebody accusing you of something that you didn't do.
Well, yeah, and it. Again, I'm just seeing the loss of humor, and I don't know what the platform platform is. That's why I'm glad that at least off terrestrial right now, I can keep a reasonable sense of humor. But no good comedian can go to a college anymore. Did you see what they did? And these are our friends on the left. Did you see what happened in a great school, Yale? Yale is dropping the freshman art course.
Yeah, because it's all white guys who painted the.
But
stuff.
they did paint these things.
Well, I know, but
I mean, if you want to add stuff, add it. Okay, I get that, but don't take away classics for God's sakes.
Yeah, well, that's the way this whole movement is. It's let's do stuff because it's inclusive. When the inclusion is bogus.
Well, Jake is in the house, by the way, and I can't wait to get to him at 8 o'clock and see how he and we all did on our bets. Jake, in general, how did I do? You can yell it out. Did I do okay in my picks?
Got to look it over. 50-50, I would say.
50-50.
Oh, so that means that you could have.
I'm mediocre.
Thrown the dice or something.
What it means is that I'm mediocre. That's what it means, and we're not happy with it. It is 7:30. We're talking with Vince Russo about the Super Bowl. So, what did you think of my boy Mahomes?
Well, I tell you what, he really came through there at the fourth quarter. He didn't look that great, certainly in the first half. The third quarter, so-so. I thought that San Francisco certainly had ample opportunities to put the game away, and they just didn't do it. They just did not come through. There were a few times where, you had one glaring example was they had Kansas City down. It was like fourth and 25 or something like that, and you let them get a first down. I mean, how could you do that?
Well, one of the things I read that they got criticized for, because I actually listened to the game because I was working, and so I didn't see it. Although I did see Shakira later on. Never mind. I
didn't think it was a particularly exciting game in general. I thought it was kind of.
Well, that's because your team lost.
So no, not really.
I got another test for you. Did you know, sir, that your temperature, what is, and this is, I'm not playing the honeymooners here, but you can go there if you want. What's a normal temperature?
98.2.
No, not, hello? For years we've been taught 98.6.
All right, 0.6.
But
okay.
your failure to remember is apropos of this story because this goes back to 1851. German doctor Karl Reinhold. That's when they came up with the 98.6. But they found over the years that the normal temperature now has dropped, and it's now 97.5.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
So you should take your temperature right now, and you know where I want you to put the thermometer.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Like the day, folks, he calls me up because he's going to be a regular, and we gave him a set of headphones to use. And he makes the mistake of calling me up, and he says, "What should I do with these?" Oh, I told him what you could do with them.
Very hilarious.
It's 7:32. So, did you happen to see Shakira or J-Lo?
No, I don't watch that.
I usually don't,
crap.
but you missed something. No, be nice now. Don't be an old ogre because Shakira took down the house. And
Okay.
I almost electrocuted myself trying to bite a cell phone. I was watching it on a cell phone. You get it?
Yes, I get it. I
No,
get it.
'cause
I thought, I when the play wasn't going on, I was reading, during the commercials and all that. And a couple of times I looked up. Most of those commercials didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, they're too clever for their own good. Remember in Beckett when the Pope says to his aide, "You're getting so clever. Sometimes you fool me and you fool yourself." I think that's what happened with the commercials. No, but can I go back to Shakira for a little bit, just a moment here?
Go ahead.
No, because 15 years ago when I started a radio, I was doing nights and I was doing a show at 12:30 at night, and I had never seen, and I used to have a TV to my right. Old-fashioned cathode ray tube in 2004. Anyway, she did her Hips Don't Lie video.
Okay.
And, you're not supposed to have dead air on talk radio. I was captivated by the music.
There you go.
See? All righty, 7:33. What do you think of Lamar Alexander? See, aren't they going to hate him now? Thank you. Aren't they going to absolutely hate him that he said, "Oh, no, the president definitely did it, but I don't want to impeach him," which is where most of us got.
Yeah, but he was in one interview. He was just laughing about it. Yeah, he did it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I mean, these people again. They have no shame. This is going to go down as one of those travesties that history at least will long remember. And now I read an article that they were saying the Republicans are now making noises that if Biden gets the nomination and is ultimately elected, that the first thing they're going to do is impeach him over Ukraine.
Oh, my God. Well, no, that's just for the election. They know they don't have enough. Although, you know what?
They'll do it.
The Democrats had enough and they didn't want to do it. I don't know. We shall see. Yeah, it's all gotten crazy. But I can tell you our democracy is failing. And we'll do a series of shows. I may actually, over this whole last 3 years, maybe 12, I don't know, it's enough to want me to get out of the business and just do sports. I'm telling you. It's, I got to leave the fight to younger people because it is a fight. It is a terrible time in our history.
Did you get any response from the Bloomberg folks?
No, not yet. I am pushing very hard, though. But again, every organization has its downsides. And is my call coming in? Yes, it is. Thank you. But it's supposed to make noise. It's not making noise. By the way, we're arguing over here about some new technology that got put in. It's not doing what I want it to do.
Oh, boy.
But at any rate, where was I? Yes, Mr. Bloomberg. Unfortunately, Mr. Bloomberg tends to surround himself with cult of personality people that think who the bleep they are. It's one of the downsides he has. As I used to say, I loved the guy and I loved working with him. But remember what I used to say about Bloomberg, though, when I had business dealings with him?
Mm-hmm.
When you meet the people that work for him, you want to shower afterwards. And it's not because they're not, it's not that they're not forthcoming, but you think we have one cult now. he's got this cult. It's Michael. And you be in a negotiating with him. We'll call Michael if you. Why don't you tell Michael I got his negotiation right here? All right. Anyway.
Gee whiz.
All righty. Listen, I gotta go. I got another guest.
Say hi to George for me.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Vince. And
all right, bye.
You're on Telos. All righty. Let me get back to George here. I almost went to my freaking mouse again, but no. Call back. That's it. Oh, goody. I've got a new system here. There it is. George and I do this dance every week. All right. I think I have the county executive. County executive, good morning. Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Good morning, George Latimer.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Sorry about that. I'm learning a new piece of technology, and as usual, I screwed it up, so I hope you will forgive me. We have on the telephone with us, as we do each and every Monday, the county executive, George Latimer. And I guess we'll get right to it, county executive. Last week, we saw a judge sort of send, I don't know if he was sending you all back to the drawing board. What was he doing? What was he saying? See if you can work something out.
Well, basically what I think Judge wants is he wants Standard to run Playland. He buys their argument about bankruptcy, which we don't, and he ordered us to, rather than terminate Standard, to restructure a deal with Standard. We will do what the court directs us to do. We're still in litigation before the judge, so it would be unwise for me to express, personal opinions and what have you. The way I view it, Bob, is you win some and you lose some. And we thought we were right on the merits. We thought the contract was terminated legally and lawfully. Unfortunately, that's not the way the judge appears to be heading. And I think at the end of the day, going back to the drawing boards will mean that Standard will run Playland in due time.
Okay, so but going back to the drawing board, will you be able to restructure the contract if indeed the judge rules for them in a way that is less harmful?
Well, he wants mutual agreement. He wants us to come back into the courtroom saying we have an agreement on how Standard is going to run Playland. Standard, feels they have the upper hand. It's all over the Facebook posts of those who want to see the corporate takeover. And we'll try to negotiate what we think is best. You remember, this contract was a 30-year contract. It had no provision for the county to cancel it for lack of performance. Can you believe that? Can you believe that at 10 years or 20 years, there wasn't a mark at which we would assess whether this was a good contract? Nope. Can you believe that the contract was agreed upon without any standards for performance? And yet, we go back to negotiate with them to do some of these things. And they know that at the end of the day, the judge is going to rule in their favor. So we will go to the table in good faith. We will try to extract whatever protections for the taxpayers that we think we can get. But I think over time, long after I'm county executive, I'm gone as county executive, people of Westchester are going to look at this deal and they're going to shake their heads. They're going to see what I've seen, which it was a bad deal, but a judge has power, just like the state of New York has power. If they mandate something, I don't have the option to thumb my nose at them. So we'll do what the judge directs, which is we will sit with Standard and try to renegotiate the deal that will allow them to take control of Playland.
Understood. Now, when this happens, and of course your people will negotiate to where the county is at least benefits in different ways, will this affect, people are going to worry, will it affect the budget? Will it affect us economically down the road?
Well, first of all, it's probably going to affect you economically down the road if you go to Playland.
Okay, because it's
I
going to cost more
suspect
money.
that you're going to see rates. You're going to see rates rise at Playland as befits the Standard philosophy. In terms of the impact to the budget, we manage the budget with lots of different elements to it. If you pull any one element out and say, "Oh, is it going to cost me more money if I have to buy more fuel every year?" Well, it's going to cost the county more money. But how we manage the overall budget will depend as to whether it touches your taxes or not. You must remember that this year we cut property taxes, even though we spent money on a variety of different things. So I don't think there's a direct correlation between whatever final deal gets struck and your tax bill, if that's what the question is.
Okay, well, it is because people will worry about it. Now, as with any deal, even
People
deal.
should, Bob,
Yes, sir.
Bob,
Yes.
let me make a statement, okay? People should worry about the final tax situation. They've elected me to manage the overall government. Every decision in government is not a referendum. You gave me 4 years to run the government and manage it in a certain direction. And if the end result is a tax cut, that should be the determination as to whether it affected you positively or not. That meant that we were creative in revenues. We were creative in the way we cost controlled in certain contracts, and we came up with a result that, at the end of the day, doesn't affect you. The concept that every singular decision is a referendum on your tax bill is absurd. In fact, it comes from ideology, not from practical budgeting.
Oh, of course, but we had people wondering about that, and it's a
well,
good answer.
So let me make sure they don't wonder anymore.
Thank you.
If they're truly wondering, I've just cleared it up. If they're ideological and they don't want playland, that's something different. They use the economic argument to try to argue that playland shouldn't remain in county control.
We're talking with County Executive George Latimer here on this Monday, February 3rd, 2020, talking about the standard amusements deal. Now, any deal that becomes controversial, but then it gets reworked, there probably will be some benefits to it nonetheless. Do you foresee any that people can look forward to if the county's ready to do it? It's a good deal.
It would be foolish, Bob. It would be foolish for me to try to lay out what our negotiating position would be.
I see. Of
if
course.
I said we could do this and this would be beneficial, Standard is listening, and they're going to say, "Oh, so that's what you want. Well, let me tell you what you're going to give us in order to get what you want." So we're going to keep everything at the negotiating table when it happens. We might well seek a mediator to come in and play a third-party role because the relationship between the two entities, has deteriorated badly. And as you can tell by my voice, my mindset is that I will do what the court tells me to do, but it is clearly not what I want to do. So I will acknowledge the rule of law, and we will do exactly what the court tells us to do. Nothing less, but not a drop more.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Now, I saw some of the press releases that came out regarding the coronavirus and even the comparisons to SARS and MERS, I guess it is. Is the county doing anything? I know we don't have any cases here, and so far so good, but I would suspect you have things on alert at the health department.
Well, right now at 9 o'clock this morning, we have an all-hands-on-deck meeting of commissioners. It was just set up by Joan McDonald, our Director of Operations, over the weekend, where we're going to have all relevant departments. Not all departments are equally relevant to this, but all relevant departments we're going to be discussing. We are on the front end of something, trying to stay ahead of it. But, of course, we're dealing with a worldwide potential. And what one county does is to execute the state health department laws. Keep in mind, that's where the authority comes from. The state health department will make certain decisions on dealing with an outbreak of this magnitude. We will implement those decisions. We have to discuss today how we implement it. But, if this thing gets to a level of quarantine and, who knows what, then the county will implement those things that we're instructed to do by the state. This goes back to what we talk about more generally time and time again. People think that the county government does all of these things totally on our own authority.
Right, of course.
65 to 70% of the things we do are what's mandated by the state of New York. And so when somebody says, well, tighten your belt, get rid of this, well, we don't have the authority to do that. We can't. Somebody says, have less people at the jail. Our staffing at the jail is required by state law, no matter how many inmates are in the prison. Why don't you just cut back on the Medicaid benefits you're giving out? Those benefits are determined by the state, not by the county. So we have a responsibility in certain areas, and we do. Our parks and recreation are ours. The bus system is ours. We can make decisions, unilaterally in those areas. But in the case of dealing with a potential outbreak of a serious virus that's killed hundreds of people in China and could morph into a worldwide epidemic, we're going to do those things that are prudent within the direction of the state health department.
Okay, well, in that case, it sounds like things are in pretty good hands, and we will see where we go from there. County Executive George Latimer, you had some words to say about the budget this past Friday. How is that process coming along?
Well, what we expressed to the state assembly delegates from Westchester County, which I was a member for 8 years, is that the proposed plan as it relates to Medicaid changes and restructuring of costs would put a heavy burden on the county government. We estimate that depending on, there's two elements of this. One is a formula by which we pick up more of the costs of Medicaid, and another one is a clawback of federal, it's an acronym, FMAP funds. That is the greater of the two problems. But if both of those two policies are executed along the lines of the proposal that was offered in the executive budget in Albany, the county stands to be hit next year by about a $15 million price tag or $20 million price tag. That means $20 million of additional spending that we have to budget for. And if you allocated it toward taxes, then it would be a 4% tax increase. Now, as I just said, there's so many elements to a budget. You can't take any one cost and say, oh, that is how your taxes are going to be. But for our purposes here, that mandate is going to be crippling. And that's what I said to my colleagues, my former colleagues in the Assembly, and I'll give the same report to my former Senate colleagues this week, that this is a crippling formula. And if it's adopted as is, it's going to put great pressure on property taxes. I've made a commitment to freeze property taxes 2 straight years. Well, I did better than that last year by cutting them. And I'd love to cut them again. I have promised to cut them because I don't know all of these things. And this is an example of what happens. People don't see it, but a mandate comes down from the state government. It's, it's like gobbledygook to the average person, except it's $20 million worth of gobbledygook. And then when it comes budget time, I have to go into the reserves to balance the budget,
of course,
or state level and taxes. And people don't see the gobbledygook. All they see is, well, Latimer doesn't keep the taxes down. It's very frustrating when you're mandated by a court and you're mandated by the state. I took on this job not because I thought I was some sort of a genius. I consider myself a regular guy, and I think I've proven that over 30 years on this radio station and on all of the other places that people talk to me about. But when my hands are tied behind my back and my feet are shackled, and then somebody says, well, how are you going to respond to that? Well, I'm going to respond. I'm going to hobble because my legs are tied together. And in this particular case, this formula does not work for us being able to handle the county government. This comes out of the fact that the state has a huge budget gap, and they don't obviously want to raise their taxes. The governor said he doesn't want to raise state taxes, which means income taxes. If there's no raise in state income tax, if there's no raise in state taxes, I'm not advocating for it, but if there's no raise in state taxes and you have a big budget gap to close, well, then what do? Well, you shove it down to the counties, and you make the counties pay more, and you can do it. You have the power to do it. I can't stop them. If they decide to pass a budget this way, that's what it's going to be.
County Executive George Latimer is our guest. What else is going on that you're concerned about and want to shout out about County Executive?
Well, we had a terrific week last week outside of the 2 or 3 issues you raised. We had a job fair for the people that were laid off at Arrowwood in Rybrook. We had, over a quarter of the people who lost their jobs came. We put, along with the help of the state as well, we put a variety of vendors around the table, other hotels, supermarkets, healthcare facilities. So that was a good thing. We launched our Census 2020 program a week ago, and we think that's a very important effort to try to make sure that Westchester gets an accurate count. We think there's over 1 million people in Westchester, and if we count them properly, then we're eligible for more resources and also for our share of representation. We launched last week our food scrap recycling program.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Work with those communities. All right. Well, all those things are, those are the good things.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of them.
We had about 10 good things.
Well, it's always the way.
10 good things last week. We have like one bad thing.
County Executive, it's always the way. I want to ask you about some of those. Let's talk about how can the county help? Because I know the federal government gets involved, the state. How can the county help ensure that we get an honest or as honest as possible census?
Well, the census is actually being taken by the federal government. We don't touch the forms and all that. But what we can do is a series of educational seminars in all of the nooks and crannies of the county, in places where they're hard to count. It's harder to count people who live in apartment buildings than in single-family houses. It's harder to count old and young people. It's harder to count people of color. It's harder to count people who are from immigrant stock. All of those things we assist by holding educational programs, things that highlight for us what exactly is happening, and then people get to see the sample of the forms in advance. They get an idea of how those forms would be filled out. So when the form actually comes to them online or in the mail, they don't look at it, freak out, and let it sit in an envelope and never respond to it. So they understand how important it is. We reach people through the churches, houses of worship, synagogues. We reach people in a host of different educational ways, to the school district. And there's never been an effort made like this. I've been in public office through the last 3 censuses, and there's never been an effort like this to try to bring public attention to the census. We think it's the right thing to do, and we don't want to count any more than's actually here, but we don't want to be undercounted. We don't want some other place to get the resources that are due us because we had it tougher to count the people within the jurisdiction.
Okay. Your sound changed a little bit, but it's working fine. I looked at the program for food scraps. Now, how is that going to work? Say a little bit more about that, because I saw this and I said, this is a good deal.
In the short term, here's what we're doing. We're providing the transportation for municipal food scrap recycling programs. Most of the communities that have it, which would be about 20 of the 45 communities in Westchester, have a drop-off place where you, the individual, can take your food scraps, don't put them in the garbage, don't send them into the garbage incinerator where they ultimately would go, but rather put them in a separate category. We will truck them to, we'll contract for a waste hauler company to do this, private company. We will truck it to a place where they can be placed in a aerobic composting area, and that will save us money because we spend more money to put them in the garbage stream than we do if we put them in a separate recycling stream. So that would be a positive result financially, and it would make it easier for the communities to plug into the system by having it done that way. So we're going to launch that in September. In the meantime, we're going to contract with one community and create a compost facility for that community. It'll be a smaller one. It'll be good for that one community of the 45, and it will also serve as a sample for what the other communities could do in their own area. Because if you can compost in your backyard, that's the best of all worlds. If you can compost each community where they have space, that's the best of worlds. And then the county would step in regionally to pick it up for those that don't have the area to compost. You get communities that are small size, very urbanized. It may be hard for them to have the land to compost. And of course, composting can involve odor and traffic. So there's a lot of folks that will find it difficult to find a space that's sufficient in their community. So we think by taking this on, we're doing something good environmentally, and we're doing something good in terms of cost savings.
County Executive, I saw something else in your list of things last week that I found interesting. You started to honor former county executives by naming different conference rooms and things after them. One, just for the fun of it, because he's a regular and wonderful guest with us, is Andy Spano. Did you name anything after Andy yet? I looked at the list and.
No, not yet. There are 3 county executives that have yet to be recognized with some version of respect, and that would be Andy O'Rourke,
of course,
Andy Spano, and Rob Astorino. Now, with Andy Spano and Rob Astorino, they're a more recent vintage, and so we expect to be doing something for them fairly soon. But Andy O'Rourke, I think, is the county executive who served a long tenure and has not yet received that respect. What we just did, though, in naming 3 of the conference rooms on the ninth floor of the county executive wing, is we went back to the first 3 county executives to give them some respect. William Blakely, who was a judge, Herbert Gerlach, and James Hopkins. These names are lost in the everyday conversation that people have. Nobody has any idea who these 3 guys are. They did some magnificent things in their day, but, local government being what it is, it's very easy to be forgotten. I have no doubt that in 50 years, only a handful of people ever remember that I ever served in this position, because it's not, and you remember presidents, you don't necessarily remember, local officials. But we thought it was the right thing to do. And I might point out, in the world of bipartisanship, I am a Democrat. These first 3 county executives were all Republicans.
Yes.
But in this particular case, history is more important than partisanship. And I wanted to make sure that they got at least some respect and some recognition. And if you're ever up to the ninth floor for any reason, you'll see a little plaque, a picture of them in each of the 3 rooms to recognize what their role was in county government during their day.
Oh yes, but it's really a nice thing to do. And now I have an evil streak in me, and when I have Andy on this coming Thursday, Mr. Spano, I'm going to tell him to name the janitor closet after him and see what his reaction is. By the way, I know you know him many years longer than I. If I may just take a sidestep, he is just a wonderful analyst and guest each week. I just have a ball with him, account executive. And you know him a lot longer than I do.
Well, I have, and I've worked, with him. I was chair of the board of legislators when he first became county executive, and I consult with him. I meet him, I just had lunch with him within the last month, and I ask his advice. Both he and Rob are the only two living ex-county executives, and they're the only two other people that kind of know what I'm going through, So, Bob, I'm going to have to cut out. It's a pleasure to talk with you, but I do have to leave.
Oh, is this? You mean you have work to do? Jeez. County Executive George Latimer, thank you very much. You get busy. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get to Jake in the seat of honor. Jake Schaefer is coming up in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to see how he did with his picks, I did with my picks, how you did with your picks. But first, I'll get it closer so I don't have to lean. You guys will get used to it. My camera's over there now. Last week it was there, but it's better. It's all for the better. It really is. Let's take a look at the weather. Dum-dum-dum. The weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It is 41 degrees, getting up to 52. No precip today, scattered clouds. We just saw pretty sunshine bouncing off a building, but it went away. But mostly sunny skies today. The temperature will be 54. The wind out of the west, 5 to 15 miles an hour tonight. Mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 37 degrees. The wind will be southwest to the southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. That's tonight. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. Again, the temperature will be about 50, nice and warm, though. Wednesday, morning showers giving way to increasing sunshine. The high will be 43. Thursday, periods of snow, sleet, and rain, changing to rain, high of 40. And on Friday, cloudy with periods of rain, the high will be 45. The overnight low will be 29 degrees. And the top of the hour is being brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management and their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Kahn. Plug in virtual reality. And by the way, we're going to be giving those free samples away as soon as they're done fixing up the train station. We understand they're going to be fixing the bathrooms today, putting in signs soon, the PA system, all of that. It's coming your way. And during that period, after we do our grand opening, we've had a soft opening already, you can come in and sample plug-in virtual reality. But now you know what it's time for, right, folks? Yes, indeed. Mahomes, and more Mahomes 3 times in a row. They're losing the football game. The clock is ticking. Jake Schaefer was throwing rope over a stanchion in his home, ready to take his own life because of his picks. But, I mean, he lost his pick, I think. But at the end of the day, he did a pretty good job. This is that part of the show brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. And we say good morning, Jake.
Morning, Bob.
Look at you with the lights on you. What a handsome man.
Yeah, what's up with the lights?
What you gonna do? We rearrange everything so we can let you know. I know we're scaring folks. If you've got children, get them out of the room. All right, we made some more changes over the weekend, as we want to do, as you can see. All righty, Jake. Let's get down to cases. First of all, we know who won the game. We know what the score is. But what's the real story? What did you learn?
The game went exactly as I told you it would have. If I was a San Francisco fan, I would want the coach fired. I would have wanted the coach fired at halftime, actually. He
When
coached
he ran out the clock in the first.
gutless.
That's what I read.
Yeah, I don't think he realized that he was actually in the Super Bowl.
Gutless.
It was gutless, and I texted my friend at halftime. This is one of the most gutless things I've ever seen in a Super Bowl. This is going to come back to haunt them, and of course it did. But amazingly, the defense buckled up, was stingy. They just couldn't. They couldn't hold it back. It was just a terrible, pathetic coaching job by the same guy that was leading New England 28-3 late in the second half a couple Super Bowls ago. So
Who was that?
he was the Falcons offensive coordinator a couple years ago when the Falcons were.
Now, why do you think they did that? Why do you think they ran out the clock? They were going to try and have a low-scoring game. Do you think that? By the way, we're in the same damn jacket.
I know, we're like twins.
Look at us, handsome too. All right, continue. So what's his name? Do you know?
Shanahan.
Oh, Shanahan.
That coach with the stupid hat he was wearing yesterday. He doesn't. He's the flat billed hat.
I actually
dresses
didn't
like
see
he's
it.
a 15-year-old kid.
I didn't see it between.
Oh, you didn't watch the game?
No, I had a lot of work to do to keep this radio station with wings on it. So go ahead.
No, I was just the 49ers defense. They came out to play. Garoppolo was good, not great. Good game manager. Had the game. They had the game. They blew it.
What
Absolutely
happened
blew
later?
it.
What happened? How much of it was Mahomes, and how much was
Mahomes,
the defense falling apart?
the worst Super Bowl MVP in the history of Super Bowls. The running back should have gotten the MVP. Mahomes was mediocre. I don't know how he got the MVP. The running back should have got the MVP. San Francisco up 20 to 10.
Go ahead.
What? No.
I'm kidding. I said Jake's in a foul mood today.
Up 20 to 10 with the ball, 8 minutes to go. They have a nice first down run, get the clock going, and for some strange reason, they decide to pass the ball. Now they decide to pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
2 quick incompletes, no clock running, kick it right back to the Chiefs. Press their luck a little bit too much.
They did press their luck a little bit too much. What did you like about the game?
The 49ers defense, they deserved to win. They played hard. Terrible coaching.
Okay. But terrible. But again, when you get 3 touchdowns, unanswered touchdowns in a row, why did that happen? I mean, that's not on the offense.
I think they were just shocked at what exactly they played the game for. Just
Okay.
a tough 55 minutes and just shocked at what happened. They were punch drunk.
Okay, let's look at how well you did, and then let's see Jake's picks
How
of the
did
week.
you like the Super Bowl or the halftime show?
Okay, with the risk of getting in trouble, I've always had this fascination, let's use that, or admiration for Shakira. And I like that. But other than that, I'm okay. I mean, J-Lo was good, but Shakira took the house down. But that's separate. I even watched it. I actually watched that on my phone. I didn't
dear
watch
God.
actually any of the game. I had to listen to it while I worked. There's just too much to do.
Well, we were both correct on the number of J-Lo wardrobe changes. We both said over 2.5, and she had 3.
Okay, now let's go back to the top. Let's see how well you did. Who did you pick?
I picked the 49ers.
So you lost
I
one.
lost that one.
Next thing?
You picked the Chiefs. You won that one.
Oh, Marrone. Okay, next.
Coin flip. The 49ers won it, and I had the Chiefs. You had the 49ers. You won that
I'm
one.
on a roll. Go ahead.
Will Mahomes have over 2.5 passing touchdowns? You said yes. I say no. I was correct.
Oh, you were correct. Okay.
You were incorrect.
Okay, go ahead. What else?
Will a quarterback win the MVP? And this was terrible, but yes, you were correct. I said no.
Marrone won. Yes, good. Okay. Go ahead.
Garoppolo have over 242.5 passing yards. We both said no when we were both correct.
Yeah, see that? Go ahead. By the
Now,
way, didn't I win the first? The first score of the day would be 3 points.
We'll get to it.
Oh, fine. Go ahead. He pushes back my great
Now,
victories.
I timed
my
this.
great victories.
I actually timed this on my cell phone.
Make
but
Marrone great again.
I read it in the New York Post, so I guess I timed it incorrectly. How long will the national anthem be? Over or under 2 minutes? the New York Post says it's under. I timed it to be over, but I'll go with the New York Post, and we both said over, and we were both wrong, according to New York Post. But I might have started the timer when they started.
Well, that's a question. Now, based on when you timed it, did we win?
Yes, we
Then
would have won.
I go with your.
Okay.
Okay, good.
And the length of the final word, I know this to be a fact. We both won this. The final word. It was over 5.5 seconds. It was closer to 8 seconds. We both won that one. Actually, you said under. I said over. I'm sorry.
So
I won that one.
Won,
you lost that one.
Okay.
And I know that to be a fact.
Yes. Well, no, I trust you.
Will
Lion,
the
dog.
opening kickoff...
Hoax. I'm just kidding.
Will the opening kickoff be a touchback? I said yes. You said no. You won that one.
Is it any wonder? Victory is mine.
Yeah, what's the score right now? You're
I don't
winning
know.
pretty
I
handily.
don't know. I got the X's all over the place here.
First score of the
I
game.
have a little edge.
Touchdown or field goal. I said touchdown. You said field goal or safety would have counted.
Victory!
It was a field goal. You were correct.
Victory!
What will happen first? A sack or a touchdown? I was correct on this one. I said sack. You said touchdown. A sack was first.
By the way, Mahomes took some good hits from what I read. Really, and he got right up.
He can take them. He's not like Lamar Jackson. He's not a little.
What happens to Lamar?
He's not as stocky as Mahomes. Mahomes is built.
He's built like a very top heavy, like chest.
Yeah.
So he's got like shoulders like a gorilla. It's amazing. He's strong.
Total interceptions. We both said over 1.5. We were both correct.
Anything else that I won at?
That is it.
All right, now let's get your...
Very entertaining game. Just I was shocked at the coaching decisions.
What I'd like you to do is go back to that a little bit. Remember, we have a lot of people listening who follow this game every year. Maybe they get involved in the playoffs. Maybe when their home team is out of it, such as the Dolphins, and it's over early. When you say big plays and big mistakes, let's go to the big mistakes first. What were they?
Garoppolo had a terrible interception, and that probably led to the coach being very scared at the end of the first half. Threw an interception, probably led to the idea, let's go to halftime, regroup, we're tied. You can't coach like that though in the Super Bowl. You got to go for the win.
You do have. Now there was a point. Now, by the way, I missed a touchdown when I had the radio on and the phone while I was working, and it was 24-20. The team went up, and when we went back from break, it was 31. What the hell happened?
Big run.
But all of a sudden? I mean, was that before the commercial break?
My wife said the exact same thing. She was reading a book, and she looked at the score and couldn't believe that the score was what it was.
Because all right, we're going to take a break right now at 24-10. But then the break came back. All right, it's 31. I said, what the hell? Was that sudden? That quick?
It was pretty quick.
Who ran? Was it Mahomes himself who ran it? Who ran it?
No, the running back Williams, who I think should have won the MVP. But
how many yards did he rush for?
He had 130 rushing and 30 receiving.
Who scored most of the touchdowns? Him?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, so what were the other big mistakes? You have the
Mahomes had a couple bad interceptions that you don't really see from him.
Didn't he fumble once?
He fumbled out of bounds. It wasn't a turnover, though.
Okay. But didn't he get the ball knocked out of him one time or something, if I listened right?
He did drop it a couple times as well.
Okay. All right.
Now, when you listen on the radio, what's the commercials like? Do you have to pay the big bucks to be on the radio commercials?
There were different
I've never even
commercials.
considered.
No, there were different commercials. They weren't the big commercials. I really don't know. Again, what I did, there's a site on the phone, on the TV app, that says NFL Super Bowl coverage. And it's a radio feed. When they go, you just see some stats. There were no actual commercials. They would have people analyzing the game, but you can see it was on delay because none of them talked about that touchdown. So when you came back, it was 31-20.
The commercials were awful.
I've heard that.
There was
People said
one
they
good
were-
commercial. I enjoyed
Which
the
one?
Bill Murray. Have you ever seen the movie
That's
Groundhog
the one
Day?
I did see. Yeah,
that
did I
was.
see it? Do you know I won't watch it?
You won't watch it?
Well, I'll tell you why. I happened to be. I was on assignment in Switzerland, and every week I would come home for the weekend and get back on a plane. And so that movie was playing every bleeping time I got back on the plane to Switzerland. So it was mirroring what I was doing. I'm on the plane again, Groundhog Day. This is before they had a lot of different plays, like 25 years ago. And I will watch it now, but it took me almost these 30 years to be able to, 25 years to be able to do it again. But I loved it the first 5 times.
Can't watch it.
No, anyway.
That was a great commercial. I will say that
You didn't tell me how you felt
part
about
of the game.
Shakira.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah,
She's
thank you.
40. It was her 43rd birthday.
And the other one is, by the way, back to Shakira. Now, you got to go back 2004, 16 years. I'm new to radio. I'm doing a late night shift. And it was half talk, half music. But I was talking at the time, and her Hips Don't Lie video came on the terminal. And there was 15 seconds of dead air. I'd never seen it before, heard of her before. It's a great video. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. You can sigh.
I have to say, the part of last night that cracked me up. I know a couple degenerate gamblers,
Oh, aren't degenerate
And,
gamblers a pisser to listen to and watch one during these times?
and there's a bet for everything. And
Yeah.
I know people that bet on everything. And Mahomes is over under for his rushing yards, not passing. His rushing
my
yards
God.
was 32 yards rushing. So going into the final drive of the game, locked up. They're up by 11. Game over. Mahomes has 44 yards rushing. Safe, easy win, easy money. What he does is he takes the snaps 3 times and just runs around, runs backwards. He goes down to 29 yards. He loses 15 yards just running around backwards to knock the clock off. Everyone who bet the over on his rushing yards.
That'd be screaming.
Oh my gosh,
Screaming.
the worst beat I could ever imagine.
Oh. Well,
And I know some people that lost money on that.
yeah. Do you know? I as you know, I grew up in a heavily gambling neighborhood, and I wasn't a gambler, so it was great because I could observe without the pain. And the worst I've ever seen people behave, though, I must say, was college basketball. And it was when they gave the points, they were very comfortable, and then the scrubs would come in the fourth quarter. And they'd be screaming at this half, you know when people half cry and half scream, please, no.
That's why I don't do it.
No, I understand. So now let's go to the great plays. Now I heard a couple of his touchdown passes. Were they cool or were they just average? What were they?
Average.
I mean, they weren't like,
Did not have a very impressive game.
so they weren't like Eli to Manningham or anything like that.
No.
And there was one touchdown. Oh, this is what I wanted to ask you. I couldn't wait to ask you this. There was a touchdown that was called into question, and they had to review it. The guy by an inch, I think, made it in. And they said it was 4th and goal.
Yeah, it's incredible in this day and age.
If that had happened,
you can't have the kind of technology you need to. If you're going to review every play, and
what did
you have to have.
Was it in? Were they right?
It was.
that a good-
I couldn't tell. You have to have a better camera angle for
okay.
that play.
Now it was in. If it wasn't, what do you think? And I'd love to ask the Kansas City coach. Would they have gone
Yes,
for it, or
he
would
would
they
have.
play?
He's
You
a
really
gambler.
Think he would have?
He's a River City
See,
gambler.
now my gut as a coach, and in hockey it's always defensive in my brain, is you got to take the 3. No, and at least it's tied. You're going to overtime. No, he goes for it.
I think Reed would go for it.
Were you thinking that the whole way, never doubting
Mm-hmm.
yourself? I wonder what other people think about that. Wow, that's fascinating. 8:15. Any other great plays that you thought, boy, people should look at?
Fun game, very fun game. I really thought the 49ers played really hard. I felt bad for their defense. They were shocked. The coach just blew it. Absolutely blew it.
Okay, well, you know what it's time for. It's time for you to give us your record. Now, one of the things that we did, and I want to give credit to our sponsors for this last few months doing this. Hopefully they'll want to do something else with us besides Jake's Picks of the Week. We'll have Jake something else for the week. This week's final football picks were brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. All righty, folks, you've been waiting for this. Now, before we do that, we even need proper music. These are Jack's, his final game over. No, or will it be all right, Jake, what was the final total this year? Jake's picks of the week. Did we make money? Did we lose money?
It was a fruitful first year. 30, 24, and 2. Everything told. Maybe I should get a couple more hits for the Super Bowl loss, but...
All right, had you gambled in each one, and be realistic, had you put the kind of money the average guy is going to put on it, not some degenerate gambler, you won money, right?
Yeah.
36, 24, and 2.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the guys in the New York Post. I don't think anyone's over 500 in the New York. They have like 7 or 8 guys. I'd like to. I don't know what their
so you
stats are.
did pretty well.
Uh-huh.
Okay. What else would you like to add before we send you back to your research corner? What else would you like to add?
It was a good football season, very enjoyable. I'll see you next year.
All right. Jake's picks of the week. Thank you very much, Jake. We'll be right back with the weather, and then we'll talk with New Rochelle Mayor Noam Bramson. Well, just think of it. The Super Bowl is come and gone. Actually, what we may have Jake do, too, you should pick who's going to win this debate tonight. Showdown in Iowa. I'm almost getting used to it. Or how many people will die from the coronavirus? I am going to hell. All righty, let's take a look at the weather. It still is about 42 degrees right now. A mixture of sun and clouds. Getting up to 52. Nice, comfortable weather today. I'm going to lower my there you go. Mostly cloudy, though, tonight. The temperature will be 37. We'll have mostly sunny skies today. I missed that. I skipped over that. Getting up as high as even 54 now, they tell us. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. Temperatures again around 50. Wednesday morning, showers giving way to increasing sunshine. We'll take the sunshine. Temperature dropping a bit, getting down to 43, but the overnight low 30. Thursday, wow, periods of snow. Help us! No, it's not a lot. Sleet, rain, changing to rain. The high will be 40. The overnight low will be 38 degrees. Friday, cloudy with periods of rain. The high, 45. And as you know, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. And we see the mayor is calling. We're going to get the mayor lined up. And we'll get to the mayor in a moment, Mayor Noam Bramson. Right now, this upcoming segment is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, their partners, Aging Issues Radio, Dominic's Fine Cigars, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And the beginning of each month, we go to this guest. He is, of course, the mayor of New Rochelle. Please welcome Noam Bramson. Good morning, Mayor.
Morning, Bob. Good to be with you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you, sir. And it's been a bit. How was how did you get into the new year? And did you enjoy the Super Bowl yesterday?
So I admit with a little bit of shame that I fell asleep in the third quarter, but was woken up for the fourth quarter by my kids, and it was a good game. So glad to enjoy it along with the millions of other people.
Well, Mayor, as you well know, when you're involved in your own business, you wind up working too much, and I worked through it, but I listened on the radio, so it was still interesting.
Well, you were one of the hardest working people in Westchester, so it doesn't surprise me to hear that, and I'm glad you were able to enjoy it at least by ear. And of course, we're super proud that one of the Chiefs players is a Rochelle alum, Jordan Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
So Rochelle was represented in the Super Bowl, and that's a particular source of pride and pleasure to everyone in our community.
And you'll be glad to know that I led with that in the local news. I thought it was apropos. A couple of things going on. I know you swore in at the beginning of the year, or they were swore in, a new group, a new city council, a very diverse and different city council. And you had a couple of town halls. You had one over at the library. Looks like we're going to have an interesting year, to say the least, in a good way.
I think so for sure, and it is all to the good. So we've got 3 new members of council. It's been, I think, at least a dozen years since we've had that many new members in a single cycle. It's the first time in more than 20 years that a majority of council members have been women. As you point out, they represent diverse backgrounds and perspectives, and they're really sort of injecting new energy into city government. So I think it's great for our community. It's great for our interactions on the city council. It's already evident, even in just a couple of meetings, that the voices and views that they bring to the table have elevated our conversations. And I'm looking forward not only to working with each of them, but also learning from them, because I think, no matter how long you've been involved in public life or any job, you always have to recognize that there's an opportunity to grow and learn. And I think I'm going to benefit on both a personal and professional level from my relationship with the new council members.
Believe me, I know what you're talking about. Every week we add another bit of technology, and I scratch my head on how to use it. You have no idea. I have buttons and switches over here, man.
Are we dinosaurs, Bob, you and me? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not. I'm a little more. I have a longer dinosaur tail than you do, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple of items. I know that you have to deal with them. I deal with them, of course, intellectually when people bring them up. There are some folks in town that are concerned, and it's always good to have these concerns that, are we moving too quickly with the development? Should we take a time out? Ought there be a moratorium? And a moratorium, I put my cards on the table right now. I'm not in favor of a moratorium. A look back, an assessment, fine. But these things have been vetted ad nauseum, at least I thought. And other people, of course, concerned that we preserve what is historic in the town. How do you view these issues, and how will you be approaching them?
Well, I think they're important questions, and my own view is that promoting sound, well-planned development is in no way inconsistent with preserving the things that we care about in our community. Mm-hmm. If you do it properly, then you can accomplish both. So the first thing we should remember is that the city's growth and development plans are really confined to just about 10% of our land area. In 90% of the community, the goal is preserving existing land use characteristics, suburban characteristics. We know that many people come to New Rochelle because they want a suburban quality of life, and that's something that we intend to cherish and preserve. Within the downtown area, obviously, the city's plans call for significant change, but even there, it is important to preserve elements of our history that folks in the community, including myself, value greatly. Mm-hmm. So you can see that, for example, the preservation and restoration of the facade of the Lowe's building, the preservation of the former Standard Star building that's being incorporated into a project, the preservation of the National Bank building that is also being incorporated into a larger project. Where I think some of our critics have a fair point is in arguing that we ought to have had a more formal and complete preservation plan. And that is something that we're now working on. In fact, there'll be a further council discussion and update tomorrow on that subject. And I am hopeful that a formalized preservation plan will be in place before too long that will help further guide our efforts. But it's not as though that that priority has been ignored because, as I indicated earlier, on an informal basis, we have steered development towards the preservation of many structures that are important. I will say I agree with you that a moratorium would be a significant mistake. One of the great success stories of New Rochelle in recent years has been breaking the narrative that said for decades that we were a city where you couldn't do business successfully. We had a reputation as being sort of a government that couldn't get out of its own way. And now we have succeeded in bringing billions of dollars in investment into the heart of our city in a way that I think will benefit us for generations to come. And I think if we were to sort of impose a blanket moratorium, we'd be right back to the sort of bad old days when New Rochelle was regarded as a place where you could not do business successfully. I think that would be very harmful to us. So proceeding with the projects as have been approved, consistent with the city's vision that was based on ample public input. But yes, let's recalibrate, let's adjust as needed with respect to preservation or affordable housing or a variety of other things where, although we've done a lot, I think we can do better going forward.
My guest, of course, the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. He's with us each and every first Monday of the month, and thank you for doing that, Mayor. You mentioned affordable housing. We always hear about gentrification. In fact, we did a story earlier today where in Yonkers there's this concern. And that's a tough thing to balance because to make a city economically viable and even prosperous, you need development, you need new businesses, you need modernization. That's got to be so difficult to balance, the whole issue of gentrification.
Yeah, and balance is the critical word, as it is with so many other things. So here's how we've tried to strike that balance. Yes, the ratio of market rate to affordable units will shift significantly towards market rate over the coming years. And that's by design because we do need to have a population with disposable income that can serve as a customer base for a wider range of goods and services. That's the essence of a healthy commercial district, which we all want downtown New Rochelle to be. But in absolute numbers, there will be hundreds of more affordable apartments than there are today, at a variety of price points. Look, our socioeconomic diversity is one of the hallmarks of New Rochelle. We want to remain socioeconomically diverse. We don't want our current residents to feel forced out. We want everyone to benefit from equitable, inclusive growth. That's our goal. Now, I do think that we have an opportunity in the months ahead to improve on our affordable housing policies. Right now, we require 10% of new units to be affordable up to 80% of area median income. There's an incentive in the zoning code to go deeper. But I think there's a lot of interest in moving to even more stringent requirements, as well as looking at provisions which right now allow people to build affordable housing off-site and trying to encourage greater inclusionary housing, that is, affordable housing blended with market rate housing. So I'm open to improvements in our standards, but it is important to recognize that we've done a lot on this front already. And I do hope and believe that when this process of redevelopment concludes, we will continue to be a place that is socioeconomically diverse, where there are housing opportunities for people of different means.
Let's move in another direction regarding that. One of the issues we hear a lot about, and I'm sure you're grappling with it, is the issue of now that there are so many new buildings and others is scheduled to change, retail space is going to become more expensive. We see some, and I know there's no easy answer to this. I'm not looking for one, but we're seeing more vacant storefronts. A lot of that also due to the internet and Amazon, et cetera. Are there any efforts, I know some councilmen have mentioned it, to perhaps work with the developers to maybe early on have more economic inducements to get retail?
Yes, we speak with developers on a regular basis about this, including trying to forge partnership among different developers so that we can essentially sort of curate retail development in the downtown area. It is a complicated equation, and we should acknowledge honestly that during the sort of development period, there can be some a period in which the benefits are not yet realized. I mean, remember, of all the projects that have been approved relatively few are actually leasing up already. Most are in construction or pre-construction. And so the customer base that will foster retail growth is not yet present. So we're going to have to sort of be patient as this unfolds, and remember that we're working on sort of a sound strategy, a sound plan that will create an overall business environment that's more vital and vibrant and better for entrepreneurs. But it'll take a little while. And yes, we will continue working directly with developers in order to activate ground floor space to the greatest degree possible.
Apropos also of this phase of the development is there are issues, of course, with parking. There is construction, Con Edison, sewers, etc. There's disruption to traffic and ever. What would you say to folks about being patient? We have to. I mean, obviously, we have to go through this period.
Yeah, exactly. Look, in my experience, most people, even those who suffer daily inconveniences because of the construction that's underway, are excited about the direction in which New Rochelle is moving and recognize that all of this is going to add up to a healthier community and a better quality of life. You know, it's a little like when you do home improvements. You know, you're putting in a new kitchen or a new wing on your house. You know, it's
I hate it.
Well, yeah, it's like it's really inconvenient for a while, and you know, noisy and dusty, and you have to kind of adjust your daily routine. But, you know, you're also sort of excited about having a place to live that's going to be better and will last for years and years and years. And I think most people are able to keep that perspective and recognize that we're building for the future here, and that our future is going to be better and brighter as a result of the actions we're undertaking now.
My guest as we pass through 832 is Mayor Noam Bramson of New Rochelle, talking about development. Just an sighting, if you will. I can't think of the word. I'm losing it. Oh, yeah, an observation. Can you believe how quickly some of these buildings go up? One day you're driving by, oh, there's a floor. And the next day you come by and it seems like there's 5 floors added to it. It's amazing. Is it quicker, do you know, Mayor, than it had, let's say, 30 years ago? Or have they developed better means?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but it's funny. I have, like, my feelings on that run in two directions. I always feel like the subsurface work, the foundations, always seem to take a huge amount of time to me.
Yes.
Like, you know, I feel like they're just kind of like moving dirt around forever. And then the moment they begin working on the superstructure, when the foundation is done and they begin rising into the air, that's when it seems to go real fast. So, you know, there's a lot of sort of preparatory work which is less visible. And that can be time-consuming.
You know, the so-called Loews building where the theater was, there are people living there already.
Yeah. That was one of the first to be completed, and and what I hear from the builders is they're very pleased with the pace of lease-up. And it's evidence that, you know, this is an appealing housing market, so we're lucky.
And then Burling Lane, one day I drive by, there's another building. Then I know some of that there was modular, but good grief, they go up quickly. I want to move on to another issue, reminding folks that we're talking with Mayor Noam Bramson, our monthly visit. I understand, and I don't know the specifics of it, but one of the things that came out of some of the recent meetings that you had is, and when I say that the city council, is perhaps having a council member somehow either attending or participating in certain either school board meetings or other meetings with the school district. How do you envision that?
I'm actually not aware of that specifically.
No, because I've heard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, you know, I'll say that I think council members speak on an informal basis with their counterparts in the school districts pretty regularly, just as we do with community leaders and public officials at every level. That's part of our job, is to work with our sister institutions. But we've never, in a formal way, attended school district meetings. Now, sometimes there are committees or initiatives that involve the city and school district jointly. For example, My Brother's Keeper. And in that context, there may well be a city council member and a school board member who are participating together in a project. But if you mean council members attending school board meetings, at least I personally am not aware of that occurring.
No, I don't know that. Well, that's why
something.
I asked it the way it was. I'm not sure if it's a school board meeting. I'll ask one of the councilmen when they come on this week.
Sure.
It wasn't formal. It was some informal suggestion that some council members made. I can get you clarification on that as we pass through.
Okay, sounds good.
8:35. Any news on the budget? The one complaint we got, from callers is the outflow tax for the sewer issue.
I get it, and yet the argument I think made persuasively by our staff is that this is a more equitable and broad-based means of raising money for essential infrastructure. And, of course, it was paired with a zero on the property tax rate, the property tax levy, I should say, the first in many years. So I think in its overall composition, the budget was respectful of taxpayers and struck a good balance between investment in essential infrastructure and services and maintaining a bearable financial burden. But I understand why a new fee can raise concerns, and it's part of our job is to engage people and hear them out and explain what the logic was for this new measure.
Okay, let's look ahead. It's February 3rd, and Mayor, you're not as old as I am. Good for you, but the older you get, it really is true, the faster time moves. I can't believe it's February 2020. I can't, but it is. And we look ahead to the next year, and I know you should have coming up, I guess, sometime next month, your State of the City. What are we looking forward to here in New Rochelle in terms of the year?
I'm going to totally cop out on that and say that I have not begun to draft my State of the City address. I know it is on my agenda literally this week to begin sort of focusing on that, but I'm not in the position at this moment to give you a sneak preview of the speech.
Okay, don't want a sneak preview of the speech.
There's no speech yet to preview.
Okay, there's no speech yet. Well, I didn't really so much want to preview of the speech, but we'll go back to that because, even your detractors will always give you that. Oh, he's a great speechwriter and a great speaker. So, you always want to be on that curve. But in terms of just intrinsically, where do you see our city heading?
Well, I think the prior part of our conversation captured much of what's going on. It's the dramatic changes in the downtown, which have positive implications in my mind for the rest of the city. But it's not just that, of course. We're continuing to make strides on the waterfront with the relocation of our city yard, which is going to open up Echo Bay. We're continuing to pursue the DRI, which includes improvements along the Lincoln Avenue corridor and the repositioning of a portion of Memorial Highway into a linear park.
That's right.
We're continuing the citywide work that relates to our sustainability plan, preserving open space, improving our ecology, reducing energy consumption, and I think we have an opportunity in the years ahead, particularly with our new council members, to focus more fully on social progress, on equity, on inclusion, on making sure that every part of our city feels fully engaged in and feels that it benefits from the changes that are underway. So, I think New Rochelle is moving in a very positive direction right now. I'm as excited about our future as I've ever been. But I recognize that there are always challenges and always difficulties. Those are not things that you kind of conclude one day. It's a perpetual challenge.
Of course it is.
Of overseeing a community, but I'm excited about our course.
Mayor, I've been here about 15 years now doing this, and I think back to when there was the last push to develop, and then the market, the market and the economic circumstances changed. And then this window opened up, and it coincided with the commitment to development, the hiring of Mr. Aragon, et cetera. Did you think that you meaning the city, and of course under your leadership, Chuck Strom, et cetera, Mr. Aragon, did you think you'd be able to get this much done this soon?
I hoped we would, but there's always some degree of doubt and uncertainty when you embark on the unknown. So I'll say that the success we've enjoyed has met or exceeded our expectations.
Yeah,
it is as good as we could have hoped. So it's very exciting, and as you pointed out, it's been very much of a team effort. I'm proud to be part of that team, but I don't claim more than that. But it's gratifying to see plans that have been many years in the making actually unfolding and taking shape in in reality. So we're very excited about where we're headed.
Now, you mentioned in your list of things looking forward, social progress. What kinds of things do you think we can achieve in that realm?
Well, so we touched on it a little bit earlier. It's things like affordable housing, things like My Brother's Keeper, which really focus on the unique challenges that face particularly young men of color. It's making sure that we're thinking about the particular needs and perspectives of our immigrant population, which is such a vital and essential part of New Rochelle. I'm mindful of the fact that our diversity by every metric is kind of the defining characteristic of New Rochelle. And it's a huge benefit and blessing for all of us to be able to live in a community where our neighbors are different from ourselves. But it's also vital that every part of the city feels valued and feels that they have an opportunity to get ahead and succeed. That's something that involves both sort of substantive programming and dialogue and conversation. And I think it's part of the responsibility of a city government to foster that sense of inclusion.
It is 8:41. We're with Mayor Noam Bramson for his monthly visit with us. Mayor, I've always liked enjoying, usually we do it off the air, but just a little insight here. I've always enjoyed talking politics with you. We have Iowa coming up, and I'm looking at some of the people running. Now, they say that Bernie Sanders has I tend not to believe the Post, but I'm looking at other outlets as well when it comes to these things. Anyway, the Post. But Joe Biden is slightly behind Bernie, and some of the other people, as you know, are running. Buttigieg, who I know you endorse, Tulsi, Klobuchar. How do you see this turning out? Where do you think we're headed, and do you think Michael Bloomberg has a shot?
So again, I'm for Pete.
I know that.
I'm both publicly and privately. I'm for Pete. I think he's spectacular. So I'm hopeful that he'll do well in the caucuses, and that will be a springboard to success in the contest that will unfold afterwards. In answer to your specific question, absolutely, I think Michael Bloomberg has a chance. He's someone who's a significant national figure, former mayor of the biggest city in America, as well as essentially unlimited resources to apply to a presidential race, which is an advantage for him. Look, we'll see. There is no clear front runner in my estimation. There are certain candidates who are running ahead and certain candidates who are running behind, but no one who is in a prohibitive position.
Right.
And it's fluid with a lot of primary voters and caucus goers sort of still choosing among different candidates who they like. So, we'll see. I hope and believe Democrats will be united at the end of the day around whoever emerges as a nominee, because I regard the Trump presidency as a national emergency, an international emergency, and I think replacing Donald Trump is of the utmost importance. So I will be supporting whoever emerges as the Democratic nominee, but at least right now, I'm for Pete, and I think he'd be the best president.
Well, I may as well join the fray here. I have been advocating for Michael Bloomberg even before, largely because his balance. I think he can win. I don't agree with everything, but you know how that is. One more thing, if I may, and I didn't have you on obviously to bash the Trump administration or any of that. But what's your take on the impeachment? And the fact that I think Lamar Alexander is the best example of where it wound up. Yes, he did it, so what? Let's move on. What was your take of the final analysis of this?
I think at a national level, the Republican Party has become a cult of personality that is prepared to excuse any misconduct whatsoever and really has no sense of principle or decency whatsoever. I think they're a party of cowards.
Wow.
And I think that was entirely evident in their willingness to sort of completely ignore the overwhelming evidence for abuse of power. And I'm quite concerned, as many others are, that the president will now regard his acquittal by the Senate as a license to double down on his entirely inappropriate conduct in a way that is harmful to our country and harmful to the world. This is going to be a dangerous year ahead, and I hope very much that it'll only be a year, and then we'll have a new administration that upholds the norms and values that have made our country great.
Mayor, did you, as someone who is engaged in this field, who has a lot of insight into it, did you see this era coming? I mean, in all fairness, the left takes its excesses to our extremes in this country hurt it. But did you see this reaction, populist reaction, coming?
Not to this degree. I mean, in hindsight, you can see all the elements of it, and right-wing populism is not a new thing in America. We've had Pat Buchanan, we've had, God, I'm blanking on the name of the former Alabama governor, George Wallace.
Yes.
So there's been this strand in our politics for decades, but it's never commanded the support of an entire political party, and it's never had power. So I didn't think it was possible for someone like Donald Trump to be elected, let alone for him to now command a 90% approval rating from one of our two major parties. And I have to say, it's very scary to me.
It is. Well, that genie. Now, let's assume the president's not reelected. How long will it take to get that genie back in the bottle? Because an awful lot of discourse.
Much longer. A very, very long time. And by the way, part of the reason I support Pete is I think more than any other candidate, he is appealing to our better angels. He is reminding us of what it is that makes this country great. He speaks to a unifying message, and I think that is the tonic we need. I mean, I get the impulse to fight, and that's necessary when it comes to specific policy battles. But kind of as a theme for a presidency, what we need is someone to call us to higher ground, and because we've been in the sewers for the last 3 years, and I feel like Pete is like there's like a cleansing quality.
Well, he's got a breath of fresh air,
which I really find appealing.
But of course, you have the issue of so young and such a small area. But intellectually, he certainly fits the bill. Mayor, thank you so very much for your time this morning, and thanks for your candor on that issue. We'll talk to you soon. Mayor Noam Bramson.
My pleasure always, Bob. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care. We're coming up on 8:47 now, and next we'll be talking with Tom Abenanti, and then, of course, at 9 o'clock, Bob Cox comes in for his long-form review. And yes, it is necessary right now to do the weather once again. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. And of course, I put newspaper stuff on top of my weather. I do this all the time. You get used to it. It is now 44 degrees, on its way to 52. Mixture of sun and clouds out there now, but it'll be mostly sunny later today. The temperature's getting up to around 54. You can bathe. Well, you can't quite go swimming, but you get my gist. Tonight, mostly cloudy, a temperature 37 degrees, a wind out of the southwest to southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. I should do this in some poetic way. And the temperature will be 50 degrees. The wind will be southwest, out of the southwest, 5 to 10. Wednesday, morning showers giving way to increasing sunshine, high 43, the overnight low 30. Chilly. Warming up again on Thursday, but not before we have periods of snow, sleet, and rain, but it'll change to rain. The high will be 40, so no snow sticking. Friday, cloudy with periods of rain. The highs will be 45. The overnight low will be 29 degrees. And as we get towards our final segment of the hour, that segment is brought to you by Aging Issues Management, their partners, Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Con, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. While we wait for, and it should only be a minute or so, Tom Abenanti to call. Pardon me. I was listening to some old stuff driving up the other day, Friday, and Saturday morning. And the way announcers back in the day sort of had a singing quality. Whether they be baseball announcers or whether they be and I noticed in the evolution from that through top 40s radio to now, it's changed somewhat. Natural voices. Again, we still have some people, hey, how are you? That's a little bit of it. But also we had back in the 30s, the president in his way will, and it was just a whole different way of announcing. And I'm not sure when. I don't know I think it was talk radio that managed to change it a little bit and became more conversational. But I must tell you, it takes a while when you're doing this. I mean, for those of you who've watched the Howard Stern movie, in the beginning he did the same thing. Hi, I'm Howard Stern. And then finally you get conversational. But there also always has to be a bit of energy and projection. And I just found it interesting. But I've been tempted to do a whole show in 1930s speak. And then and now the president will talk to us. Here's Mayor Noam Ramson, who will bring you the news or something like that. All righty, we're ready for Tom Abernathy to call. That should be him. Although you never know, it could be a guest, but I'm going to take a shot. We don't have a screener with us right now. Please welcome the Assemblyman from the heart of Westchester, speaks out for Westchester issues all the time. Good morning, Mr. Abernathy.
Good morning, Mr. Marrone. How are you doing?
Very well. Always a pleasure. We had the county executive on earlier today, and he's concerned. I know he spoke to the caucus of Westchester Assemblymen. He's worried about the budget, as are you. But before we do that, did you watch the Super Bowl and did you enjoy it?
Actually, I was working on on assembly matters in my office. I was listening to part of it.
That's what I did. I was here working my butt off. It was just, you know how you run when you run your own business. You run a law firm, so you know. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I run the law firm, but I'm not there very often,
right.
Unfortunately. I spend most of my time on assembly business. I thought it was a very interesting game. I was actually surprised at how well Kansas City did. But, you know, the state of Kansas produces a lot of surprises for people all of the time.
Yes.
Especially to have the city of Kansas City move to it so quickly right after its team won the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that is.
Are you aware of what I'm talking about? The president congratulated the state of Kansas.
Yeah, no, I know that.
For its
Yeah,
football team.
Yeah, he got the wrong Kansas City. I know that. That's a common. I'm well aware.
You know, it's a little frightening when the president of the United States doesn't know. I mean, even those of us who don't watch football know that we're talking about Kansas City, Missouri, and we're talking about San Francisco, California. And you would think that the president, before he tweets, would at least check that out. But we have somebody who believes that he knows everything and therefore doesn't need any advisors and doesn't need to check anything out. But if he doesn't know where the football team is from, I'm a little worried about what he knows about world events.
It does make you
what's
wonder.
Going on wherever.
All right, back to local business. But
which puts a burden on us in New York, though, which gets back to the question of what does he understand about the United States budget and how it impacts people, because we're facing a lot of problems at the moment in New York, many of which are not of our own making, but are caused by the federal government.
Well, you know, we have this issue
which goes
here.
back to the conversation you were talking about with George Latimer and his concern over shifting the cost of Medicaid from the state to the county at a time when we're finding that federal policies are making it very difficult for us to continue having a reasonable budget, a budget that is well planned, that thought out. The federal government has done several things that are making it very, very difficult for all of us.
Now, let's talk about the budget. Latimer did, I know, attend a meeting. I guess you were at it with his constituents in Albany. How do you think you can help with the local?
Well, we held a hearing the other day.
Yes.
In Greenberg. All of the state assembly members held a budget hearing. I'm understanding that our senators from Westchester are going to be doing the same thing to hear what people have to say. And as per usual, everybody was looking for more money. But you see, the governor traditionally cuts back all of the monies that go for additional items. For example, he would cut out monies that we put in every year to make sure that Legal Services of Westchester County has enough money to continue performing the services that they're performing. The governor doesn't see that as a basic service that's necessary, so he doesn't fund that, and then negotiations take place, and we try to find some money to make sure that Legal Services statewide has the money it needs to help the people that it needs to help. And so a piece of that goes to Legal Services of Westchester. Every year the governor cuts that out, and we have to find some money to put it back in. And there's a whole series of things like that, millions and millions of dollars like that the governor takes out. And so it puts us in the situation where we're constantly having to put things back in the budget, and it makes it very difficult for us to try to move forward with some additional programs that we think our constituents need. We can't put more money in to fix roads, for example, because we're backfilling all of the stuff that the governor took out that was in last year's budget. Mm-hmm. And now we've got this, and he always puts in something, and this year he's put in many things like this, where we have to defend our local communities. I mean, here he's come up with a crazy formula that says that if Medicaid expenses increase by a certain amount, then that cost is going to be shared by the local counties. And on the other hand, the counties have very little, if any, control over what money is being spent through Medicaid. There was a time when the county had control over it. There was a time when the county had to pick up the additional costs for Medicaid. Mm-hmm. But we did away with that years ago because we realized it just wasn't fair. And they were just the county. So we took the control away from the county. The state specifies what services have to be provided. And the only thing the county does is a ministerial function of determining whether somebody meets the state standards to qualify for Medicaid. And so by doing what the governor's doing, the Medicaid, the county's only option is to say to people, no, you don't qualify. And if they do qualify and the county doesn't put them in, well, then there's an appeal process. People who need assistance are not getting the assistance, and it's costing a lot of money over litigation and administrative proceedings to get people who are qualified to get the services they deserve. And we're back to Legal Services of Westchester because they help people often get the services that they deserve to get.
Who don't have it. My guest is, of course, Tom Avenatti, Assemblyman from the heart of Westchester County, very outspoken. Now, each week when we talk about these issues, I always get late to what you wanted to talk about, and I wanted to open that up early. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, I am concerned about the budget this year. I'm also concerned about people with special needs. You know that's a concern that I have, and I talk about it a lot. But what's happening here is the governor, in his attempt to cut back on Medicaid, once again is turning to the Department of the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. And he's playing some games here, and we haven't figured out yet what he's doing. The governor has imposed a 3% global cap on Medicaid spending. That's generally seen as applying to the health department and the monies that the health department handles. Some of which, about half of which is federal monies, and the other half of which is state monies. And every year, of course, Medicaid goes up. We have more and more people, more and more seniors who need assistance, more and more people going into nursing homes. And we all know that even middle-class people can't afford to pay for long-term care. So they shed what little assets they have, maybe give them to their kids, or they just run out of assets. And now they're left with no monies to pay for a nursing home or long-term care, maybe care at home. So they qualify for Medicaid. And this is happening more and more every year. The baby boomers are getting older, and so Medicaid costs are going up. Also, the bubble of people with special needs, people with autism and other special needs, is hitting the age where they're moving into OPWDD. And
what's that? What's OPWDD? Out of the school. You mean with senior?
Office of People with Developmental Disabilities.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the agency that helps people with special needs. So, and they're leaving school, and they're moving now into their own lives. Some cases their parents are dying, in other cases they just have to get out of the house, whatever. So now you've got those two factors and many others. So we have more and more demand for Medicaid services, far outstripping the 3%. I mean, you got the cost of inflation, you got all kinds of stuff. Plus, one other thing is happening. The governor keeps adding more and more services to Medicaid. So what used to be paid for by state services is being transferred to the Medicaid column. Even in some cases where Medicaid funding was used to supplement state funding, it was in the other departments, so it wasn't covered by the global cap. So the governor now just took $1.1 billion of OPWDD funding for people with special needs and moved it to the Medicaid column.
Oh, good grief.
Now, if you're going to do that, you're immediately going to bump up against the 3% cap. So this is an artificial attempt to cut back on spending in Medicaid. And we don't know what the impact is going to be over at OPWDD. There shouldn't be an impact, but the commissioner of OPWDD is walking around telling everybody in public hearings and whatever, well, this year is going to be tighter than usual because of a Medicaid squeeze. We're spending too much in Medicaid. OPWDD is in the Medicaid cap, and so now we're going to have to cut back on services for people with special needs. And everybody knows that those services are minimal to start with. Kids are not getting the services they need. Young adults can't find places to live. Older adults are we have people homeless now and with developmental disabilities.
Huge problem.
And that compounds the problem of people with mental health problems, which I haven't even gotten into. So I'm rambling on here, but I'm trying to give people
you're making a clear point. But what people are wondering is, what are the possible outcomes, Assemblyman?
Well, we're going to fight back and say we cannot cut back on services to people who really need them. We can't cut the safety net. There are people out there who want all kinds of different projects, want to spend money on all kinds of things. I think we're going to end up saying we're going to patch the safety net again. We're not going to let people fall through it. This is not going to be the year for new programs, although we'd like to do a few things for people with needs. And I think the money is there. You see, what's happening is the governor says there's a $6 billion deficit. It depends on how you determine or define the word deficit. From what we see, the money is there. It's not going to require a tax increase on the average citizen. In fact, the governor is talking about cutting taxes for the middle class. So what's happening is that $6 billion is really a shortfall against his cap. The money has come in, the revenue is there, or will be there this year, but we are short on what he projects he'd like to spend. So it's political will, not a shortage of revenue.
Wow.
And we in the Assembly feel that if there is a shortage of revenue, the people at the top can pay more. We're talking about people who make $5 million a year, $10 million a year, $1 billion a year. It's amazing. We got like 130 billionaires in New York.
You're not talking about me.
No, you're not talking about me either. We're talking about the Bloombergs
Assemblyman,
of the world.
We've got to go, but I hope you will keep up this fight, sir.
We will know a little bit more next Monday.
All right. Thank you so very much, Tom Abenante. He will be back with us next Monday. Unless something breaks, you come on. We'll put you on the Newsmaker line, Assemblyman. Thank you very, very much.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Tom Abenante from Pleasantville, but he's been the loudest voice representing Westchester. In 2 minutes, we go to Bob Cox for his weekly visit. Remember, Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. Quick look at the weather, and the weather's brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. That's an exclusive sponsorship, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. All righty, let's take a look. Our last look, we'll have one more before the end of the hour. It is now 43 degrees. It'll get up to 52. We've got scattered clouds right now, the classic mixture of sun and clouds. Mostly sunny for the rest of the day. Cloudy tonight. Now, the big news is we'll get up to 54, but as we get down to 37 tonight, it'll be a little cooler. Obviously, Tuesday, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. A temperature of 50 once again. Nice day, even though a shower or two. Wednesday morning, showers giving way to increasing sunshine. We'll get up to 43 again, but it'll chill at nighttime, down to 30. And bringing us on Thursday morning, Bob Cox, Periods of snow, sleet, and rain, changing to rain. The high will be 40 degrees. And on Friday, cloudy, I'm sorry to say, with periods of more rain, the high 45 degrees, the overnight low 29. And this upcoming hour is supported by Plug-in Virtual Reality, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, Aging Issues Management, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and United Hebrew of New Rochelle, top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. He's with us. Actually, I can pronounce that a lot better. He is with us each Monday at 9 o'clock, the man who does the heavy lifting when it comes to investigative journalism here in Westchester, particularly New Rochelle, and covering New Rochelle, our schools, City Hall, the police department, the fire, you name it. He's on it. Various other stories as well. And we're happy to have him. Bob Cox, the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008, and we have a pretty good picture of him now. We've even put him under lights. Good morning, Bob Cox.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you with us once again, and we got a good picture of you. We've even put him under the lights. All righty, you've got many stories. What's at the top of your list today?
Well, I thought maybe we could talk about a collection of stories that sort of had a theme.
Okay, but before you go, I'm sorry, and I neglected to do this. One theme I'd like to cover is, did you watch the Super Bowl and did you enjoy it? We're asking everybody that.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, I watched the Super Bowl. I'm a football fan. The Giants were not in it, so
I'm a Giant fan.
Really just wanted a good show, and we got a good show. Was happy to see that a New Rochelle player
it was. We led with that today.
He's going to get a ring, so
that is nice.
So Jordan Lucas.
Oh, I just wanted to be sure you had a good weekend. We like a happy guest is a productive guest. All righty. Talk to us. You said a common theme when I cut you off.
Yeah, I just was kind of looking through what's been going on over the past few days, and it's not unique to the past week, but I'll be working on a story. In fact, I was just going back and forth with Damon Marr, the Westchester County legislator for this area, that he was thrown off the public safety committee.
I saw that. We did that story.
And then we had a bit of a controversy because the superintendent in New Rochelle put out a message to the Albert Leonard Middle School community to tell them that there was not the coronavirus from China at Albert Leonard, which I thought was an odd choice. I didn't attend the school board meeting Tuesday, and that's because I'll get to my next point. But
okay.
Dr. Fahey read out a list of answers to 16 questions I had asked at the prior board meeting. Those questions were basically a collection of unanswered questions from 2019, so I thought I'd start off the year by saying, here's stuff I'm still waiting to hear back on. The reason I wasn't at the board meeting was Tuesday night I went to the opera to see Porgy and Bess, which is...
That is a great piece. That's a great opera. It's one of the few I've ever seen.
Yeah, so it was sold out, and it's a very hot ticket. It's one of the few times, if ever, you're going to see scalpers out in front of Lincoln Center trying to scalp tickets. And then talk a little bit about some of the local Facebook groups, like the Moms of New Rochelle and Concerned Parents of New Rochelle, and there's a few others. So they all seem to be a part of a theme. So explain what I mean by that. So in Damon Marr's case, I was there when he spoke to a school district ad hoc committee about called Culture and Climate, about school resource officers in New Rochelle, which was what I call sort of a fake controversial issue in New Rochelle. Fake because there really wasn't any controversy over what the board was going to do, so they just put on sort of a kabuki theater pretending that they were considering their options, but in fact they never intended to have SROs. But a police
That's true, isn't it? If I can just underscore that. That was a pretext to a no. To we will not have
Yeah,
one,
which is not surprising in the world of politics. I mean, I worked as a management consultant. We were often brought in by big companies or governments because they wanted to blame us for saying we should fire all these people or we should get rid of this division or whatever. So they wanted to, the consultant said so. So I
remember, the consultant is a guy who tells you what time it is using your watch.
Well, in any
that's just
case,
one of the things anyway.
In any case, going back to Damon Marr, he spoke very strongly against SROs, and he got into a bit of a back and forth with a Westchester County police officer who, I'm not sure exactly, but sort of like in charge of the SRO program for the county police. And there was some complaints made about it by police unions and people on the county legislature that it was like an anti-police kind of statement. So,
in your estimation, did it come out that way?
Look, I mean, I don't.
The beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I know.
Well,
that,
I wouldn't even put it that way. It just, if he wants to come to a public meeting and say whatever he wants to say, right? That's fine. I mean, I took a picture of him speaking, and the only reason I took a picture of it was because it was a dramatic photo. He was kind of standing up over the table, and he had kind of his hands
gesticulating.
Out. But as far as what he said, I mean, he could think whatever he wants. If people don't like it, they can always vote him out of office. But I thought it was so. I know there was a bunch of backlash against him with Republicans, but also with Democrats who had support from the police union and the union for the Westchester County Police. So he was removed from the public safety committee from the Westchester County legislature. And so I would take issue with that.
When you say take issue, he shouldn't have been removed?
I don't think that you should take somebody off a committee because they said something you don't like.
Understood.
Especially at a public meeting. And then there's a certain value to having somebody here who maybe everybody else on the committee doesn't like.
There's actually a great value to that.
So then that's one thing that came up over the past few days, and I was communicating with Damon this morning, and I'll be working on an article about that when I get the chance this week. So the coronavirus, there was an email sent out to the Albert Leonard community, which predictably was then posted on social media, and it was emailed all over the place, and people began talking about it, and it was a non-event. Okay, this was an email that said, we don't have the coronavirus at our school. So why would you send out an announcement because they didn't send out a similar announcement for the other schools. So I thought that was bizarre, but it was very poorly worded message, in my opinion, from the superintendent, because it didn't start off by saying, we do not have the coronavirus from China in our school. The issue was that some kid, I don't know why, brought in some medical documentation that showed that he'd been diagnosed with the common cold variety of the coronavirus, which is known as NL63. But it didn't get into explaining that until the second, third sentence. Should have been the lead sentence, should have been in the headline. But then this caused a whole reaction online about should this information have been put out, should it not have been put out, and it kind of got into a whole fight. And there was an element there of we don't want to hear from people who were going to be critical of the decision to put out that message or the way that the message was put out. And then I mentioned I had asked 16 questions at the first school board meeting. Very few of those questions got meaningful response. Several of them right off the top were under the advice of counsel.
Yeah, I was looking at the.
Okay, so they're taking the Fifth Amendment, I guess. Some of them weren't answered at all, but I would say that there was a perception. I was not there, but I heard a perception that board members were sort of annoyed at having to take these questions and sit there while they were answered. If they want to disagree, I guess they can. I watched the video, and I know this from looking at school board videos. they don't often convey the emotion in the room or the
Mm-hmm.
feeling in the room. So, but there was a certain annoyance. And then on Porgy and Bess, it was really interesting because it is a hot ticket. I don't want to say it's like Hamilton, but it's for
It's up
opera.
there.
It's like Hamilton
yeah.
because there's a whole bunch of people who don't give a damn about Alexander Hamilton, have never read a history book, but wanted to go see that because for a lot of people it was a thing.
It was a thing, and it was entertaining, and the rest.
But it was a
of
thing. It was like what other people are doing, and I'm going to do it, and it became a hot
Sure.
ticket, and that's fine. And I saw Hamilton, and it's good.
You did see Hamilton, huh?
Yeah.
No, because
and-
he's my favorite historical figure in that era. So.
Well, I'm more
I
of an
would've liked
Aaron.
to
I'm
see
more
it.
of an Aaron Burr fan.
Well, is he provocative or what? Actually, the first book I ever read about Hamilton was about the duel. So anyway, go ahead. I was in high school. Go ahead.
So what was interesting about that was that there was a whole bunch of people there who you could tell never went to an opera before. And so the behavior was very different. Now, I'm not unhappy about it, don't get me wrong, because I support the Metropolitan Opera, and the more people who come and buy tickets and get the idea maybe I could come back again,